okay. We're actually 3 or 4 minutes away. I feel like mission control in Houston now. It feels like a countdown.
Brian is helping Paul get set up.
Okay, no problem. I just said that I'm sure Brian will have it all under control, so I'm not worried about it now. Thank you.
Hello, everybody.
Joining us via WebEx, please just look at the top of the screen that we're showing there. That's how you can offer public comment. We do have a public comment session coming up as agenda item B. So if you have comment to make and it does not involve an agenda item, we'd encourage you to make it there. If you have a comment on an agenda item, we'd ask that you can make it there, but you ask that you can hold off until that agenda item comes up. You'll be given an opportunity. I'll send out notes to you in your chat feature, which you'll want to turn on by mousing over your screen, clicking on the little circle at the bottom that has like a call out, like you see in an old comics thing. Send me a chat message. 1 second. And then say that you would like to make a comment during this. When it's that time, the chair will call on me. I'll let them know that you're there and ready to speak. I'll unmute you, and then you'll have up to 3 minutes to make your comments. So that's how that's going to work. I see one person is on, just looks like they appear to be just on the telephone. For that person, if there is public comment during those times, what I'd ask you to do is you hit *9 on your phone. And that'll give you a little message that you've raised your hand. I'll see that pop up on my screen. And then when our public comment comes up, I'll be able to call on you that way. So at the end, though, please then hit *9 again, and that will lower your hand. So that's how that will work. It looks like we've got everybody that I can tell on board now. And I'll go ahead and turn it over for when they want to start the meeting.
Okay, it looks like everybody's ready. Good morning. Time is now 9 o'clock. I call to order the June 5th, 2020 meeting of the Contractor State License Board. My name is Johnny Simpson, and I'm the California CSLB Board Chair. Joining us today is our colleagues from the Nevada State Board Contractors. As outlined in our board meeting agenda, we will be having a joint discussion with Nevada prior to holding our board meeting. After roll call, I will turn it over to Kent Lay, Nevada's Board Chair, to open their meeting. Police, I would like to note that Michael Layton has an excused absence. Please call roll.
Johnny Simpson.
Oh, I hear.
Kovat Albanese.
Here.
Frank Altamura.
Here.
Augie Beltran.
Here.
David Delatorre.
Here.
Dave Diaz.
Here.
Susan Granzella.
Here.
Mike Layden has an excused absence. Diana Love.
Here.
Marla Richardson.
Here.
Jim Raines.
Here.
Nancy Springer.
Present.
Mary Tykert.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Also joining us remotely are David Fote, Registrar, Tanya Corcoran, Chief Deputy Registrar, and CSLB Board's Division Chiefs. I'll now turn it over to Kent Lay, Nevada's Board Chair, to open their board meeting.
Thank you, Chairman Simpson. Good morning. The time is 9:02 a.m. and I call to order the June 5th, 2020 meeting to the Nevada State Contractors Board. I am Kent Lay, Chairman of the Board. Ms. Green, have the notices been posted?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the notice was posted on the board's website, Nevada Public Notice website,
and emailed electronically to persons who have expressed interest in being kept informed of the board's meeting.
Ms. Green, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Mr. Lay?
Here.
Ms. Cavan?
Here.
Mr. Hernandez?
Here.
Mr. Leggett?
Here.
Ms. McGuire? She's absent today, I believe. Mr. Menzies?
Here.
Mr. Wells?
Here.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Green. We are conducting our board meeting where members, the public, and the staff are participating remotely under public meeting rules that have been recently modified by the governor. At this time, I'd like to turn back the meeting to Chairman Simpson to continue with California's agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Kent. This may be a little clunky, but let's try to do the Pledge of Allegiance to open our meeting. So if everybody would please follow me. Ready? Begin. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, republic, which is one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty for all. Thank you. It was a little clunky, but it works. Okay. For the first time in our board's history, we are conducting our board meeting where board members, the public, and staff are all participating remotely under public meeting rules that have been recently modified by the governor's executive order. CSLB Chief of Public Affairs, Rick Lopes, is our moderator today. He will be assisting us by monitoring the public's teleconference line. Board members, when you would like to comment on anything throughout our meeting, please select the raise your hand icon on the WebEx application. I will call on board members to speak. When called upon, please unmute yourself, and when finished, return to mute. You will also click on the raise your hand icon in the lower to lower your hand. So click it. That's how you work it. Click it on and off for those who don't know. Kent, would you like to make some opening comments? Chairman Lay?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Having a problem trying to make sure my mic was off. I want to take a moment to recognize the long-standing partnership we've had with the California Contractors State Licensing Board. For the past 11 years, our boards have remained committed to working collaboratively on shared goals and objectives, which help guide our own directives to address and respond to changes in the construction and economic environments of our state. We are grateful for the opportunity to continue learning from information on the operations, policies, innovative solutions being implemented by your board, and for the ability to share our own experience and strategies with you as well. The collaboration is unique among the Western states and has proven beneficial in a number of ways for our agencies. On behalf of the Nevada State Board, Contractors Board, and Ms. Green, thank you for always being a valuable resource for Nevada and for your willingness to work together on significant matters of importance to us and our constituencies. And I will now turn the meeting back over to Chairman Simpson.
Thank you. We will begin with agenda item B, which is for public comment and requests for agenda items for future meetings. The board values public input as part of our consumers protection mission. To allow us enough time to conduct our full schedule of business today, I'm limiting public comment to 3 minutes apiece. If your comments don't involve an item on today's agenda, this would be the time where you can make them. If you have any comments on one of our agenda items, we would encourage you to wait until we get to that item. We will give you an opportunity to make your comments at that time. There are a few other rules that apply. First, California law prohibits board members from discussing any matter brought up during public comment, and we're not allowed to act on any items not on today's agenda. Second, if you want the board to discuss a topic not on the agenda, you can ask us to consider placing that issue on the agenda for a future meeting. Finally, if you have an application, complaint, or disciplinary charges pending before the board, we ask that you not discuss the details of your case or pending complaint. That's because board members may be the judges and by law are not permitted to receive evidence or information that is not part of the administrative record in the case. Members of the public, if you are with us on WebEx and would like to make a comment, use the chat feature to send the host a note that you would like to offer public comment. If you're joining us on the phone and would like to make a public comment, press *9. We will take any WebEx comments first, followed by telephone comments. We'll use the same system throughout the meeting for public comment during each agenda item. You'll find these instructions on how you can make public comment on the agenda for this meeting posted on the CSLB website. Rick, as the moderator, is there anything you would like to add?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I can tell you that at this moment, we do not have anybody asking to
Not
make.
seeing.
Yes, Mr. Chair, at this moment, we do not have anybody requesting public comments.
Thank you. Board members, please raise your hand if you have an agenda item you would like to place on a future agenda. Not seeing any? Rick, please check to see if there are any members of the public who wish to address the board for a future agenda item.
Yes, I have just gotten a request. Stand by 1 second. Ricardo Martinez is asking to make a comment here, so I will unmute you, Ricardo, and please go ahead and make your comments.
Yeah, hi, my name is, could you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Ricardo Martinez, and I like to bring up a classification, the C61D40, and the note statement that was placed on this classification that's actually made this classification into two categories or into two groups. This license was reinstated when SB 989 share bill was passed into law. And the note statement that the contracted license board has placed, which is only stated in your website, it's not written in any of your laws, any of the regulations that regulate my industry. So I would like the board to put this on your next agenda to overlook why this was put in my classification. And I've also asked for public records, and there hasn't been no conclusion on how that note was put in there. This is stopping me from actually performing the work as a specialty contractor, which I'm certified to do the work. This note statement actually placed by the contractors board has made my license, this classification, into two, allowing me not to do work because of the certain note and the date that's placed on this license. So I would like to see if the board could take this up in their next meeting. And that's all I have.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Martinez. That is the only public comment at this time.
Thank you. Ken, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Johnny. The Nevada State Contractors Board values public input. Pursuant to Section 2 of the Governor's Declaration of Emergency Directive 006, members of the public may make a comment by submitting written public comment by email to publiccomment@nscb.state.nv.us. Emails received prior to adjournment will be entered into the record. Ms. Green, have you received any written public comments via email?
We have not, none at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Green. Chairman Simpson, I turn the discussion back to you.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item C. As we will discuss later, COVID-19 has affected construction and many other sectors of our economy. These truly are unprecedented times, and as a board, we will have many challenges to address. I'd like for us to take a moment of silence to honor those lost to COVID-19. But first, are there any board members who wish to say anything? I'm not seeing any hands raised, so please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. We will now begin our item D4, D1 through D4. We will now begin our joint discussion with the Nevada State Contractors Board. There are 5 topics under agenda item D that we will be discussing today. On page 11 is a comparison of California and Nevada board operational and structural comparisons. I will turn it over to Executive Director Margie Green and Registrar David Folk to lead us through topics of our discussion. We will take public comment following the discussion. David, Margie?
David, do you want me to go first?
Yes, that would be fine.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. In Nevada, the structure and authority of our board remains the same as in prior years, as well as the license requirements and costs noted on the chart. Therefore, I'll directly speak to some of the other areas of interest and give you an overview of what we are experiencing today. As of May 1st of this year, our overall license count is up nearly 2% from May of 2019. Comparing license data over the last 10 years shows that Nevada's current license population is approximately 9% lower than the same period in 2010. To help illustrate the current impacts noticed by the pandemic, I'd like to share some additional comparison data from recent months. During the third quarter of this year, our new license applications increased by 12%. In April, we saw a decrease of 30% from the same period in 2019, and in May, a decrease of 36%. New licenses issued during the third quarter were down 15% and have since dropped by over 50% in the past 2 months compared to the 2019 figures. License change applications decreased by 10% in the third quarter, 44% in April, and 26% in May compared to the same period last year. Active license renewals were up 5% in the third quarter compared to the same previous biennial period. However, during April and May, license renewals dropped by 5%. The board currently has license by endorsement opportunities with 12 states. We recently excluded the state of Utah from the program based on changes that the state implemented, which reduced or eliminated experience and exam requirements. During fiscal year 2018-19, approximately 13% of the applicants applied for licensure based on an endorsement. Nevada continues to have a residential recovery fund, which was modified during the 2019 legislative session to increase award amounts from $35,000 to $40,000 for individual claims, while awards for claims against a single contractor increased from $400,000 to $750,000, or no more than 20% of the recovery fund balance, whichever is less. And now I'll turn it back over to Mr. Folk.
Well, thank you. And as Margie mentioned, our board makeup has remained fairly steady. We have 15 allocated board member positions, 13 of which are filled. Very pleased about that. Regarding our license population, you'll see that we currently have about 284,000 licensees. There's a reduction in the total population in large part because inactive contractors have failed to, many of them have failed to renew, and that's resulted in approximately 1,000 or 1,200 less licensed contractors. But it's a little bit misleading because we had to close our test centers because of the COVID-19 pandemic on March 20th. And we're going to talk a little bit later about how many applicants are currently pending, but it's considerable. It's approximately 7,000. So if they had gone through the process of taking the exam and obtaining a license, we would likely be showing an increase in our license population. We're currently looking closely at our application fee. We've not had a fee study done in many years where we could determine exactly what our cost is to process an application. We've hired an outside consultant to basically do a time and motion study, and we anticipate having that study complete in October, at which time we'll be bringing it back to our board to ask if they want us to pursue legislation to increase any of our fees. Reciprocity, for many years, we've had reciprocity with Nevada, Arizona, and Utah, and we've most recently added Louisiana. We did run a count of how many licenses were issued because of a reciprocity agreement. It came out quite a bit less than Nevada. It's at 5%. We don't have a recovery fund in California, but what we do have are very effective dispute resolution programs. And just to name a couple of them, we have the ability to suspend a license when a consumer or a member of the public or another contractor gets a judgment against someone. We are we're very motivated to try to resolve licensee complaints through mediation. We have a binding arbitration program, and we have our administrative disciplinary actions where many of them have orders of correction. And you'll see that in the time frame that's specified, we were able to recover over $40 million. That was in 2019 fiscal year, more than $41 million for injured parties. So we're very pleased about that. That would conclude my update regarding our comparisons. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Do we have any board comments? Let's see, Frank has his hand up. Frank?
Yeah, Nevada mentioned that they dropped Utah. Is Utah still valid state for California?
I was not aware that we had dropped Utah. We have Jason Paddock on the line. Could you clarify that?
No, we haven't made any alteration to Utah.
Okay. Okay, so we're the same. Okay. Do we have any other questions? Seeing none. Rick, do we have any public comment?
No, Mr. Chair, no public comments on this item.
Okay, let's go on to D5, our joint board meeting agenda item. Discussion regarding the effects of COVID-19 on the construction industry. I have a few questions for some of our board members, but first I'd like to turn it over to Chairman Lay.
Chair Simpson? Actually,
yes.
Margie and I had a couple of other issues we were hoping to discuss before we get to that point, if that's okay.
Okay. Yeah, let's go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Margie?
Certainly. Like most states, the call to close the public area of state offices and businesses in Nevada came without much warning. Since construction was declared an essential business, we found ourselves in a position of needing to sustain operations with limited staff and resources. Our licensing department initially prioritized services to ensure that current licensees were not adversely affected and could continue to practice. These measures included implementing alternative methods for communication and document submittal, processing license renewals and change applications, as well as documents related to bond requirements, which have direct effect on a licensee's ability to work, and putting a pause on automated processes that suspended and canceled licenses or assessed a late fee. The board extended the period of time allowed for renewal of a license and has waived any late fee that may have been imposed as directed by Governor Cslb's emergency order. Additional time was also granted for licensees to replace a qualified employee, provided they have timely filed an application. Our test centers, which closed on March 18th, reopened the first week of May and are currently operating with limited seating in order to comply with phase 1 or reopening criteria. Initially, candidates were experiencing wait times between 1 and 4 weeks, depending on the testing location. PSI recently started offering evening sessions in Las Vegas to help resolve that issue. And I'll now turn it back over to you, Dave.
Thank you, Margie. Very similar to what they've done in Nevada, we've been very, I would say, aggressive in putting information out to the public on how they can continue to reach staff. And we have 2 new email addresses that were created. You could find them on our website and also when you call our automated phone response number. We did extend our examination testing period from 18 to 21 months. And that means if in the event that you failed to pass the exam, we're providing an additional 3 months to re-examine. And that was necessary because of the closure of the test centers. We have not reopened our test centers. They did close on March 20th. We are in the process of obtaining the necessary personal protection equipment. We've reconfigured 2 of our hearing rooms, one in Sacramento and one in Norwalk, so that we can have expanded test sites so that we can provide the 6-foot social clearance so that we can hopefully, again, that's part of our reopening plan for the 15th. We're also going to be open evenings. This is all necessary because as of June 1st, we had 8,870 pending exams, and we're anticipating having 9,300 pending exams when we reopen on June the 15th. The number of applicants, as I mentioned previously, exceeds 7,000. So this is a real priority for us. Our enforcement staff have met the challenge. They had already been provided laptops and other equipment to work remotely. So the transition to working working from their home was not difficult. They've continued to meet production goals. In fact, they've even exceeded our complaint handling cycle time goals. So we're very pleased about that. One thing, though, that I have made our board members in California aware of is that we are having to redirect 18 of our staff to become contact tracers. And that's going to have a tremendous impact on our proactive enforcement program, and that 15 of the staff that are going to be redirected are coming from what we call our SWIFT unit. As far as hearings and disciplinary actions, there has been a bit of a delay, but we're looking at this as an opportunity to see if we can do things a little bit more effectively in the future. And one way would be to conduct our hearings by video conference. Those are being scheduled this month, so we're pleased to see that we're able to look at things a little bit differently. And I would say that where we've been, as far as performance or production, the 2 areas that we've suffered, one, I mentioned the test centers. The other has been our call center wait times have increased. And that occurred because we did have to redirect staff within our call center because their cubicles or workstations are right next to each other, doesn't provide for the 6-foot social separation. So what's happened is our wait times have increased, and we're taking steps to make sure that we have as much staffing as we can at any one time, but also to encourage the public to send us an email because we have staff available to answer those emails, but we may have to look at reconfiguring space within our building to provide the ability for more staff to answer public phone calls. So that would be my update. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. I got a little ahead of myself. I apologize.
Okay, shall we go on to the next item?
Next item, yes, please.
Okay, thank you. This is item D2 on the board's agenda. Effects on board operation for the enforcement investigation processes. Significant changes were experienced in our enforcement investigative processes as we implemented a temporary remote work schedule. Our investigative process was temporarily modified to suspend job site visits, and we established a process providing investigators access to case documents. Remote access technology greatly assisted investigations in the opening, assigning, investigating, and closing of cases. To best ensure continued progress on open cases, investigators worked with the parties by phone and virtual meetings to resolve concerns and have workmanship items repaired when possible. Our job site visits resumed June 3rd. All other investigations, including money owing, industrial regulation, contracting without a license, unlawful advertising, could be investigated and processed to completion without having personal contact with the parties. And I'll now turn it over back to you, Dave.
Yeah, just if I could just touch on what we've done as far as removing just some of the effects for the licensing division. I think I talked a little bit about what we've done with enforcement. It really didn't take much of a change in order for them to work off site. But we have looked at a lot of ways to help our licensing staff and what could we do? What can we do to help them to be a little bit more effective? And it really had a lot to do with just putting together a team to look at all of our letters that were being issued. What can we do with public relations and putting information out to the public? One of the things we've done is we have banners on our website that talk about COVID-19 and how to get information so that you know if your county is one that is restricting construction or is it an essential service. For the processing, though, it really comes down to what we've been able to do with putting letters together, with looking at opportunities to make it easier to renew so that they can renew online, how we can handle arbitrations, if you will, so we can do arbitrations remotely. And finally, what has been the impact on our budget with all of this? And it kind of goes back to what I said earlier. The budget's been impacted because we haven't been able to get our licensees through the program, and that is costing us, at least this fiscal year, approximately $1.2 million. So I think that's kind of where we're at. Just again, looking at ways to do things a little bit more effectively and making sure the information is available to our licensees and our consumers. Back to you, Margie.
Thank you. The next topic was on teleworking. So in order to maintain operations, we implemented a temporary remote work policy during the early stages of the shutdown for some personnel. This was a learning experience for us, and we encountered some operational challenges based on our current workflows and a heavy reliance on paper documents. Upon returning to the office, we now have processes in place to ensure the ongoing health and safety of our staff and the public, including submission of weekly health screening questionnaires, daily health notifications prior to entering the office, daily temperature checks, masks required in common areas, limited staff in common areas, and the reconfiguration of office space to accommodate social distancing directives. Looking forward, we plan to conduct an analysis of business processes and other procedures with the goals of implementing electronic workflows and a paperless environment. These steps will help set the stage for enhanced field operations. And I'll turn it back over to you, Dave.
Thank you. Yeah, just to start with our investigative interviews, we have restricted our enforcement staff, or I would say strongly discouraged them from going out in the field. As of March 20th, what we did is we took steps to enable 75% or more of our staff to work off-site from home. This required the disbursement of over 100 laptop computers. Many of these computers went to licensing staff who had previously only worked in the office. Again, the field staff or enforcement staff generally had laptop computers, but it did pose a problem for their investigations in that we're not wanting them to go out into people's homes unless absolutely necessary. So again, we discourage them from going out to the consumers' homes. We are fortunate to have what we refer to as an industry expert program, and that industry expert program enables us to use contractors in the area who are already working to go out and do inspections. So limited inspections have been done and are continuing to be done with the permission or the approval of the homeowner and also of the expert who must have the appropriate PPE, if you will. So we were able to conduct our investigations. They have moved forward. A lot of them have been done over the phone, looking at opportunities to use video conferencing to interview consumers. You can also have, we're also having consumers send us photos or videos of their workmanship items, and it's worked extremely well. It's kept our production up and our complaint handling cycle times down. We're not sure what's going to happen ultimately with the administrative hearings. I mentioned that they're doing them by video conference now. I learned yesterday that if the party being the contractor doesn't agree to the administrative hearing being conducted by video conference, it'll be tabled until January of 2021. So that was kind of surprising, but apparently it's working well, and it will save on costs. For subject matter experts, in California, we have our own exam development, and those exams have been developed in-house, but thanks to Wendy Belvance, our testing manager, and Jason Paddock is with us, our chief of licensing, what they've done is they've now developed a new process where they'll be conducting these workshops by video conferencing, and that can save over $200,000 a year in travel. So in public meetings, I have had a number of Zoom calls with Margie. I want to thank Margie for all that she's done to help me and think about ways to conduct public meetings and also how to work with industry and having these meetings by video conference. It's been very effective. We're looking to do more of that. Then ultimately, and I guess to close, we are going to be conducting staff training with the Office of Attorney General in California, just to make sure that when we're conducting our investigations by video conferencing, that we're doing it appropriately, that we're positioning the video like it needs to be, what is the speed of the interview, and how to review documents by video conference. So that's all underway. That training is scheduled for July, and I think by conducting investigations by video conference, and also we're planning to continue to allow our staff to work to telecommute indefinitely, at least until the governor changes his executive order. And right now we have more than 75% telecommuting, and we anticipate having that 70% continue to telecommute until the governor changes his executive order. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item we had was a discussion on hearings and disciplinary actions. Following the governor's stay-at-home order in March, our board postponed the disciplinary hearing scheduled for March 18th to begin making accommodations to support social distancing initiatives, which we quickly realized could not include traditional in-person hearings and meetings. Moving to a virtual meeting format was the only viable solution to ensure the board's work continued and disciplinary matters could be resolved. All persons scheduled or involved in the hearing process were made aware of the changes, given instructions on participating in the virtual meeting, and received amended notices of hearing, which aligned with statutory requirements. To test the platform, the board heard a single case in April, which ran successfully. In the weeks that followed, our board conducted 37 disciplinary hearings over 6 different hearing dates, and the board also held 64 recovery fund hearings over 4 different hearing dates in April and May. The expedience of our board to move to the online format allowed us to eliminate the backlog experienced since the pandemic and continue processing hearings in a timely manner. An initial concern to using the online platform was the public's ability to participate and provide comments when necessary. While there were a handful of technology-based difficulties, our board was surprised to see an increased participation of contractors and participants compared to in-person hearings. Further, some of the burdens associated with traditional hearings were avoided, leading the board to consider virtual hearings as a standard platform moving forward. And I'll turn it back over to you, Dave.
Thank you, Margie. Yeah, as we mentioned, we're excited to be able to do administrative hearings by video conference. We hope that that will be something that will continue. In order to move that forward, we had to meet with the Attorney General's office. We also met with our Office of Administrative Hearings. We're a little bit different than Nevada in that we contract with other state agencies to hear our cases, but because of the necessity of this, that they've changed their way of thinking, and as I mentioned, they're allowing us to do these hearings by video conference, so that's wonderful. And again, about the public meetings, about continuing to have board meetings by video conference, we're working under something similar to Nevada in that we have a governor's executive order that's approving this type of a meeting. At such time, if that continues, or if that remains an option, I would think that our board would have to decide if that's how they would want to conduct meetings in the future. And regarding the industry experts, I mentioned that already, but I think that there's a real opportunity with trained experts to be able to use video conferencing to perform their inspections. Now, we've met some pushback from the Attorney General's office on that because they like to have our investigator present. They want to be able to take measurements, and some of that may have to be relaxed in the future because we have to look for ways to be more efficient. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. The next item concerns public relations. Communicating the current operations of the board, as well as public access restrictions to our offices, became vital to meeting the needs of our customers. Our website was updated to include a new homepage landing tab detailing specific services available, all available ways to contact the board, as well as state agency programs, government directives, and industry-related resources. Industry bulletins and social media posts reflecting this content were also distributed and posted as new information became available. Lastly, as mentioned with our other department initiatives, our public information events moved to virtual platforms as well. Since the pandemic began, we have held a live online business assistance program, hosted a construction workforce panel, and have scheduled our first virtual senior awareness town hall. And I'll turn it back over to you, Dave.
Thank you. I know we have Rick moderating today, and Rick has been the pioneer and the leader of what we call our senior scam stoppers, and that's something that's been negatively impacted by the inability to have large groups of people that can get together. And so we're looking at different ways to get the word out to consumers. And I know Rick has been looking at working with the state legislature in California and how we can work on virtual town hall meetings. So I think that's going to be real beneficial. Rick's also taken the lead on conducting applicant workshops. We had been conducting our workshops, in person in Southern and Northern California, and they were very effective. Another idea that I got from you, Margie. Thank you. I know you've been doing this for quite some time. What we've been able to do, though, is to conduct those by video conference, and it's been tremendously successful. There was one last week where more than 200 applicants participated, and they had about 168 questions. So I'm real excited about continuing to do that. It's something that we're going to be tracking to see how successful we are in increasing our licensed population. And I think that about summarizes that agenda item. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item is regarding the budget. Immediate changes to the budget were required as we face challenges responding to the needs of the teleworking environment. Immediate revisions to the budget included IT expenditures to support remote working environment and enhanced security software, as well as efforts to reduce the board's fourth quarter budget by 4% upon direction from our governor. Additional budget revisions and reductions are currently being explored as the board faces significant declines in its licensing revenue projections for fiscal year 2020-21. We are currently in the process of reviewing all expenditures of the board to determine the most efficient and thoughtful way to address those shortfalls, and will be presenting our recommendations to the board at the June 18th meeting. And I'll turn it back over to you, Dave.
Well, we've had to purchase additional laptops, but I don't know that the COVID-19 has impacted our budget more than what I mentioned regarding the inability to test applicants so that they can be approved for licensure. Later today, we're going to be discussing our overall budget and the impact that I would say increased costs and the reduction in licensees had, and that we'll have to take steps to address that. But I would say that's separate from the COVID-19 epidemic. It is something, though, that we have exhibited here in California. It's interesting if you look at how many licensees we had 11 years ago and how many we have today. We have more than 30,000 licensees today, and that's had a huge impact on our budget, and that our costs have increased. And so our board is going to need to consider implementing expense reduction strategies, being one area, and then also looking at how we can increase our licensed population. And one thing we're very excited about is we have legislation pending to create a residential remodeling class, and that could easily could add 100 licensees a month to our population. So we're excited about that. And then also I had mentioned looking at our actual costs to process documents and whether our fee schedule has kept up with the consumer price index or the changes in the economy. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item is use of
Margie, it's before we jump on, I'm sorry. I did have a question from the public on the COVID-19 that I just wanted to ask real quick since we're talking about that. They're just asking if we could elaborate a little bit on the backlog in testing as a result of that. Specifically, how long of a backlog do we think and how long will it take to try to make that up?
Certainly. Again, our goal is to begin testing on June the 15th. And as I mentioned earlier, we reconfigured hearing rooms to accommodate, to expand the number of candidates that can test daily. We have managers, Justin being one of them, that have volunteered to work evenings. So we're going to be testing daily and evenings, perhaps on Saturdays. Our goal would be to catch up, and by catch up, I mean we'll have less than, I think it's around 4,500 examinations in the queue by the end of August. But I want to turn over to Justin, is that correct? Justin Paxter, Chief of Licensing.
Yes, that's correct. At the moment, we're going to expand to evenings in all locations, unfortunately, except in the Bay Area. As we get to the end of June, we'll also consider opening it up to Saturdays based on how we're doing.
Thank you, Justin.
Thank you. That was the only public comment at this point. So thank you, Mark. You go ahead.
Thank you. With regard to technology to limit in-person meetings concerning administrative hearing procedures, in Nevada, our use of public available teleconferencing software has successfully increased participation while reducing many burdens for the individuals participating, including travel to and from our office, waiting time, and overall comfortability when presenting their comments. To date, only a handful of technical difficulties have been experienced, hindering a participant's ability to engage effectively in the online format. In these cases, we have usually continued the hearing or postponed the discussion until the participant was able to work through the technical issues experienced on their end. In every case, all participants have been understanding of the limitations So Dave, I'll turn it back over to you.
Just to confirm, Margie, which one are you on?
It's my item D3A, and let me see what it is on yours.
Okay. Yeah, I have to apologize because I got a little out of sync. I've actually already covered that.
Okay, great.
I need to cover it again. Thank you.
And I'll move on. The next item is concerning public meetings. The ability to hold our board meetings virtually has been extremely accommodating and useful for our members and the public during this time. The virtual platform has allowed important policy and budgetary discussions to take place and for staff to receive the direction necessary to continue operations effectively. Emergency declarations have modified public meeting requirements to allow state agencies and boards to adapt a virtual platform. In doing so, we have established an email account to receive written public comment as an alternative means to receiving verbal comments during the meeting. So far, we've been successful in sharing documents and presentations using this format and have found value in being able to now record the video content in addition to the audio. And Dave, did you already cover that in yours?
I did, thank you.
Okay, so I'll go on. The next is item D3, virtual site visits by staff and industry experts. Again, the virtual benefits with regard to virtual site visits have resulted in quicker organization and gathering of case facts, reduced travel time of staff, and zero public health exposure. We've seen an increase in case productivity, including improvements in overall documentation efforts by our investigators. Additionally, this format has removed counterproductive or hostile conduct that can be experienced occasionally during an in-person job site visit. Overall, early results noticed using virtual technology for investigations include an increase in participation from respondents and the public, more expedited delivery of case outcomes, and a less burdensome process while still maintaining professional and statutory compliant proceedings. And Dave, I'll turn it back over to you.
Well, I'm ready to move to D4.
Okay,
Thank
good. I'll keep talking and excuse me for the little cough. Over the past several years, I've had the privilege of serving on the National Occupational Licensing Consortium and the Federation of Associations of Regulatory Boards, which is FARB. Both of these organizations have been at the forefront of trends related to occupational licensing and discussions regarding the appropriate role of regulators providing public protection. In terms of licensure, the focus has been on the need to reduce unnecessary barriers and provide opportunities to qualified persons to enter a profession. At some of our past meetings, we've talked about the legislative and regulatory measures Nevada has taken related to endorsement programs, licensure of veterans and military spouses, and expanding acceptable types of experience documentation, all of which have gone a long way to reducing barriers and enhancing portability. Our strategic efforts this year are focused on an in-depth evaluation of our application process with the goal of identifying and eliminating outdated steps and information gathered that provides little or no value in the final decision. Most of these efforts will be process-based, but we also will be looking at modifying our laws and regulations to see what improvements can be made. Back to you, Dave.
Thank you. We've taken a number of steps to remove or reduce barriers to licensure. I'd like to just touch on a couple of them. One is we've clarified our form as it relates to doing a late renewal to explain that you can only renew within 5 years of expiration. If it's longer than that, you have to submit a new application. That reduces some of our time frame. We've developed a new application survey. I want to thank our board member, Frank Altamar, for that idea. It's been very effective in getting ideas from applicants, but also the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. 86% confirmed the licensure process was easy to understand. 83% were, well, that was 86%. 83% were satisfied with the time frame to process their application, and 89% were satisfied with the service provided to the board. We've also developed a new license letter, a letter that's sent out to licensees upon issuance of the license. It explains their employer's responsibility. It explains what they can and can't do as far as advertising, what are the contract requirements, the need for building permits, and the steps they can take to maintain a valid contractor's license. We've had a lot of legislation in California as it relates to criminal convictions, and we're, I think, at the forefront of making changes in how we look at criminal convictions as far as qualifying for a license. The most significant change occurs in July of 2020, but we started to relax some of our restrictions prior to that date in line with that legislation, which was Assembly Bill 2138. We've now gone online with our renewal process, and I'm pleased to report that in April we had 3,000 license renewal as it relates to sole owners. In April, we had 3,296 transactions performed online with 1.3 million collected. May, we had 4,747 transactions with 1.8 million collected. We've taken a hard look at all of our letters that we send to our applicants and licensees to make sure that they're really they're license or applicant friendly, and also are they clear as to what additional information is needed. We've revised most of our letters, so they're in use now. And we're in the process of developing an online renewal, an online application for our home improvement salesperson. And something our board will be briefed on later is what are the other priorities? So thank you.
Thank you. The next item concerns automation.
Excuse me, Mark. I'm sorry. This is Rick. We do have a public comment on this section before we leave it.
Okay.
And that is from Ricardo Martinez. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. So go ahead and please go ahead and make your comment. Oops, I'm sorry. Hold a second. Okay. I'm sorry, Mr. Martinez. Go ahead and make your comment.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just trying to understand a little bit removing and reducing the barriers of doing licensures. That would be me. So, correct? Since I'm granted the license, is that how the board would see it? I'm just trying to be a little. So if you can make it a little bit clearer to me.
Yeah, sure. What we're seeking to do is to make sure that everyone understands what the minimum qualifications for licensure are, that you're provided clear instruction on how to fill out the application so that you can qualify yourself if you have the minimum qualifications. But also we're looking at criminal convictions, and it's defined, as I mentioned, in law as to what should be considered and what should not be considered, and denying an applicant for a license. We deny very few applicants for licensure in California. I think it's around 1% or something. It's fairly small. But we'd be happy to follow up with you, Ricardo, regarding any concerns that you have. It's just that what we want is if somebody meets the minimum qualifications for a license, that they're able to support that, and so that they can get through the process, get their application posted, and if necessary, take the exam and obtain the license.
Okay, so could you hear me?
We can.
Okay, so once the person receives a license, and when you apply for a license, for example, like my classification never clearly explained to me the note statement that was placed on the license. So I proceeded, got the license, passed the exam. Now I'm a licensed contractor. But when I come to local agencies or to other agencies that regulate the industry that I am, they put a stop to what I have to do because of the note statement that's on here. So the Contractors License Board wasn't too clear either with me when I submitted my application and said, we could give you this license, but you could only do this much on it.
Through the chair, I think this is more of an individualized issue that should be taken offline and not in the public meeting.
Yeah, agree.
We'd be happy to follow up with him after the meeting. It sounds like it's a classification issue.
Right. Could you take care of that for us, Dave?
Yes, we will.
Thank you.
So I guess Ricardo could just send his email or contact information. We'll follow up with him after the meeting.
Yes, I'll get in touch with
chat
him.
room.
Make sure we have the information.
Are we ready to move on?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. The next item concerns automation of application submittal. Nevada's automated online license renewal application has been operational for many years. With the recent events related to COVID-19, we've encouraged all of our licensees to renew online. This campaign was successful and has enabled us to keep our renewal process up to date during this emergency period. During April, that usage spiked at 67%. Our automated online new application project has progressed more slowly than we hoped, as it was necessary to delay the start of testing that was planned for March. We designed this process to help ensure applications are complete when submitted and to allow applicants to upload supporting documents throughout the process. Many of the manual steps performed by staff will also be automated. So while we are not at the finish line yet, we are excited about implementing this project and look forward to adding online capabilities for other application types in the future. And back to you, Dave.
Thank you, Margie. We have completed the development for a prototype application and an online application, and we have a meeting scheduled for June 18th with a vendor who might be able to assist us in putting this application online. So we're real excited about that. The dilemma, though, is that we'll have an added IT cost, and that'll be something our board will be considering after this joint meeting this morning as to how we can reduce costs. I don't know that we want to spend the money on contracting with a vendor. That's one problem, but the other one will be that the governor or the Department of Finance in California has sent a budget letter out that's precluding hiring contractors or consultants unless it meets certain criteria. I'm not sure that this would, but we're still excited about the opportunity to move this forward. And I know that Justin Paddock has worked closely with Nancy Mathias on your staff and sharing ideas about how to develop an online application that would be so beneficial to our applicants so that when they're filling it out, they're not making a mistake and sending it in, and then we have to return it for corrections. Thank you.
I believe that concludes the staff presentation, Mr. Simpson.
Thank you, Margie. Thank you, David. That was very informative. Appreciate it very much. Now I'm back on track, so good. Do we have any more board comments on items D1 through 4? Please raise your hand if so. Seeing none. Rick, do we have any public comments on items D1 through 4?
There are no further comments at this time.
Thank you. So now we'll move on to agenda item D5, our discussion on COVID-19 in the construction industry. Again, I have a few questions for some of our board members, but at this time I would like to turn it over to Chairman Lay to lead our board discussion.
Thank you, Chairman. The first topic on the agenda item relates to construction as an essential service. Protection of the public's health and safety remain a top priority during the emergency order, and ensuring the public and the access to construction and home remediation services during this time was deemed essential. Construction as essential service further protect the public and industry workers, ensuring commercial and residential projects were not left abandoned and taxpayer dollars lost. To further elaborate on this topic, I would like to turn it over to Board Member Menzies, who sits on the Governor's task force during this pandemic. Mr. Menzies, can you share information on your role with the task force and how the decision for construction to remain an essential service was a benefit to the public as well as the state?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman Lay. Sitting on the task force, since the onset of the pandemic, the Nevada state government has deemed the construction an essential service that is allowed to continue onward. This was a vital and smart decision that we were appreciative of, as we believe the construction cannot stop for our sake of our broader economy. It is imperative that we were allowed to continue at this time. Just one example of this, Southern Nevada construction is one of the few industries other than gaming industries that provide local and state governments with tax revenue and provide essential services. Entities such as Clark County School District and Southern Nevada Water Authority receive hundreds of billions of dollars each year in each land sale. That's all I have, Mr. Lay.
Thank you, Mr. Menzies. Any questions or response from anybody out there? Anybody raise their hand? If not, I'll go on to the next. Ms. Cavan, as a mechanical contractor, can you elaborate on some of the changes you've noticed within the industry and what your thoughts are on the future outlet of construction in Nevada? Ms. Cavan.
Okay, I'm sure I'll be labeled the person of doom and gloom, but I'm going to talk specifically about the commercial side. So obviously, on a federal level, we saw a substantial dip in construction spending nationwide in April and May. On the commercial side in Nevada, we did not see a big slowdown the last 2 months because of, as Mr. Menzies said, construction was deemed essential in Nevada. That was huge for us. But what we did have is a lot of issues with supply chain disruptions as manufacturers were shut down across the country, and that had an effect on schedules and completion times. We did see projects related to travel and tourism shut down for the foreseeable future with the intention of starting up again later. The best indicator for our market, obviously, is with the design professionals, architect and engineers. And the bad news is that they are not busy. The private commercial projects that are in design and pre-construction are being put on hold, again, specifically if they relate to tourism. The university system has shelved major projects that were in design phase for the foreseeable future. It's anticipated that the state public works budget will be for maintenance only, no major construction projects due to lack of funding. The school districts have also pulled back on some of the projects that are in design. Washoe County School District in particular, which is Northern Nevada, has a funding mechanism in place for new construction, but that mechanism is based on sales tax revenue, which remains to be seen. So with both K-12 and higher ed are looking at what the future holds as far as distance learning and how it will affect future design and construction as far as social distancing and additional health and safety measures. So I think Nevada's recovery is going to be tough on our industry, and probably the biggest driver on the private side is a COVID vaccine, which would hopefully bring back tourism to Nevada, and then the rest would follow. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Ms. Nevin. Mr. Andis, have there been significant impacts in insurance requirements for the construction industry at this time that you're experiencing?
Thank you, Chairman Lay. Yes, some of the problems that we've run into with our clients has been the reduction in the workforce. And for us as insurance agents, we have to work with trying to reduce the cost of the workers' compensation insurance because of the reduction of the workforce. And as you know, in the state of Nevada, with the Department of Business and Industry, when you register with the Secretary of State, one of the questions that's asked when you register your business is whether or not you have employees. So some of the contractors are forced to continue providing some workers' compensation, even though they may not be performing any work, in order to avoid any fines that would be given to them by the state. The other area that we've seen a vast reduction, because we're not getting a lot of licensees, is the bonds being issued, and especially on some bond jobs. So that's been a reduction. General liability premiums are usually based on the cost of the construction of the work, and those premiums are going down. So for those of us that are in the insurance industry, we are also seeing the results of the COVID-19 effect on our businesses, and such as creating reductions in our revenue. So those are the problems that we've been facing in the industry.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Do any other members from the Nevada board have any comments to add to this topic? Chairman, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Leggett.
Yes, in our case, the landscape industry, the landscape and nursery business in Reno, Nevada, it's been a tale of two industries, so to speak, the worst of times and the best of times. Our landscape construction division has been doing extremely well. We have a city project, a streetscape, that has been able to continue as long as we're social distancing. Our best situation is our retail nurseries. They've been allowed to stay open, and we are having the best season ever. On the other side, the landscape maintenance division in the commercial areas has been shut down almost completely. Shopping centers, etc., are not allowed to be open, and they have not been able to work on those. On the other hand, the residential, they've continued working. Homeowners still need their lawn mowed. So again, it's been the worst of times and the best of times for us. We're thrilled about the retail nurseries and our commercial landscaping, and our residential landscaping has continued. And that's my report.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Leggett. Chairman Simpson, are there any comments your board would like to make on this item?
Yes, thank you, Chairman Lay. I would like to ask Kevin Albanese, as one of our larger construction employers in California, how are you addressing construction as an essential service? Is my understanding restrictions also often vary by counties?
Yeah, thank you. We were really in the heart of it with most of our operations, probably 90% of our operations being within the 6 Bay Area counties, that the county public health officer ordered the shelter in place and did not include construction as an essential service, but for some very limited exceptions. Since that's changed and we've been allowed to go back to work, the health and safety of our employees continues to be paramount. We've been working closely with our labor partners to be sure that their members and our employees have an opportunity to go back to work safely. Labor and management have really bought into the need to change the culture where if somebody's sick, that they stay home, that's not considered a weakness. with health screenings on certain particular projects, questionnaires before folks go to work, promoting social distancing whenever possible, and then a strict protocol regarding disinfecting tools and equipment after each use. So it's definitely changed the way that we do business. Our office is still at about maybe 15% capacity right now, affording folks the opportunity to work from home. But our craft workers, they simply can't work from home. So we're doing everything in our power to provide a safe opportunity for them to go to work.
Thank you, Kevin. Next, I'd like to ask Augie Beltran, related to job safety. It's my understanding that you were instrumental in developing safety protocols required for construction to be considered as an essential service. How have safety requirements impacted construction labor for the carpenters?
Well, when this thing first came down, just like Kevin said, that a lot of construction wasn't considered essential. So we had to work with our government officials and let them know that we could work safely and efficiently, so our members and their families wouldn't get sick. First thing we did is we talked to our international training center and developed the COVID-19 training program, which we shared with our employers and our members and the building trades. I'm happy to say, at least in Northern California, we've got about 6,000 members that have been trained in how to work in a COVID-19 world. The second thing we did is, as construction became more and more essential, that is, they were allowing private jobs to become essential. One of the things that the counties, the 6 Bay Area counties specifically asked for, was a third-party job site safety accountability officer. And we've been providing that service to our employers because our reps are first aid certified, they're OSHA 30 certified, and they've been providing a service to our employers to go out there and ensure that those jobs are safe. But really, the education of public officials to understand that, we in construction, we live safety every day. Got to be safe. Got to make sure you're okay. And so we promoted that. Like, I want to thank Mary Tykert too, because she had a pretty good tour out there in Sacramento. And I think that was the last straw when it came to government officials seeing that how safe that job was, that they started deeming all of construction essential.
Thank you, Augie. I'd like to ask Mary Tykert, as a large public works employer, has this had any impact on you or other contractors' business practices?
There we go. Am I unmuted? All right. Yes, it absolutely has. I'd say the 2 categories of business that we've worked on are transmission risk and our business risk. As far as transmission risk, I appreciate Augie's comments on the safe job sites. A lot of our practices are similar to what Kevin described, as far as a lot of PPE, social distancing, cleaning and sanitization protocols. They have an impact on our business outcomes because a fair amount of the social distancing work requires us to change our production process. For instance, if someone's laying a piece of pipe that's less than 6 feet or they're doing a team lift, they have to wear pretty extensive PPE, do a JHA, or potentially do things differently than they had been. So we have had a notable productivity impact in cases where that occurs, but the good news is that we can keep doing it safely. On the job site, Augie referenced, we had an opportunity to demonstrate to kind of all kinds of interested parties, including government officials, as well as our labor partners and local folks that were interested, how we can actually do construction safely. We can maintain distance as it is possible. It has a business impact. All these things have costs, and I'd say the most important one is the productivity. And on the business risk side, we also have in California, there's a somewhat uncertain workers' comp environment. There's been an executive order that we have. There's a rebuttable presumption that COVID-19 is a workers' comp injury. Tykert is self-insured, like many in our industry are, and we have an excellent safety program. Last year, Tykert social was 0.8, so we have an outstanding safety program, and that's normally how we manage the risk of being self-insured. But at this point, we think that the only way that we can actually address exposures from COVID-19 that don't come from working at the company is through having fewer workers. So we have a hiring chill because anyone that's not already working for us and introduces COVID-19 from outside the workspace is going to be our responsibility. So we're doing everything we can to keep our existing customers meeting their needs and keeping working. But we're also that's the only thing we know of to manage the risk that's been created in this environment for businesses with workers out in the field, since we don't control so many of their actions and the pandemic's in a community spread phase. So I'd say that's our main business risk. There's also all of the issues that Ms. Cavan discussed in Nevada as far as supply chain issues and potential work coming down the pipe. Construction, so much of the work we're doing is already underway by the time the pandemic took place, that's mostly continuing to go in the public space. Some of our home building customers are continuing while some have paused, but almost no one is starting new projects. And so we're looking down the road at what's coming next season and next year as the funding environment changes both for public and private work. So I'd say we're seeing a lot of business risk. We are working really hard to manage the transmission risk, and our outcomes so far suggest that we've been successful. We feel like staying vigilant and following every piece of advice the CDC issues is possible in a construction environment, which is the good news about the essential service that we provide. I think you're still on mute, Mr. Simpson.
Oh, yeah? Am I unmuted now?
Yeah.
We can hear you.
Okay, good. Okay, next I would like to ask Nancy Springer, a Sacramento County building official, what are some of the building department's inspection challenges?
Okay, good morning, everyone. It's been a new normal, huh? So we had several challenges for us in Sacramento. First off, I'll speak to Sacramento County specifically. We'd already been in the process of streamlining processes and using electronic plan review, going to electronic submittals, even electronic payments. So we could adapt somewhat easily to going fully online. I think the challenges that we had with that was, with the day's notice of, hey, we're going to close this down, how are we going to handle this? We had started a plan previous to the direction, so we were somewhat prepared, but it was more of just getting everybody on VPN that could work remotely, making sure people had proper laptops, cell phones, the things I've been hearing here from everybody else, and just security tied to that, as well as when we put all those into process, different departments had different plans. So whereas our department was fully operation down here downtown, as well as our Gady office, we kept most of our people in-house. Those that could work remotely did. The plan checkers went out there, some of the permit tech, but everything else kind of had to happen here. We closed our counters to the public, but we still had people that don't use computers and don't like to do online and had paper plans in progress. So what we did with those was we did drop boxes. We did appointments where they would call us when they're in the parking lot, they're heading in, and we would meet them and then take the project from them. So I think there's similar challenges everybody else had as far as going electronic and with short notice. The other things we ran into was the inspection portion. Well, let me step back. So was the determination of essential construction. Initially, there was no real direction on that. And then the governor came out with some more information. I think all the letters that went through to him. So we were able to, here in Sacramento, just provide full operational services. I know that other jurisdictions, as 6 counties were mentioned in the Bay Area here in California, some of them just deemed affordable housing as essential. Some of them deemed healthcare facilities, low-income housing, temporary housing. Those were the only ones they were inspecting. So those were the differences between jurisdictions became a challenge. some people even asked if we would come over to that jurisdiction and inspect for them so they could note it from a building inspector. It was kind of, we got some really strange requests. Some other things was the inspections. Obviously, we had to do PPE. We provided that. We weren't considered high risk, but we still would provide the N95 mask, the gloves, the sanitized wipes, gel. We would leave it up to our building inspectors at their discretion whether they would go, if they want to go into residential homes. We had like a checklist that they would go through for safety. Have you a fever? Is anybody sick? You know, we kind of had these things. We tried to do most of the inspection from outside. If it was a water heater in the garage, we would go into the garage. We would never go into the house. So, you know, if we could do something through a window. We did not agree with virtual inspections by video, or I think a lot of the platforms, inspection platforms they used were like Blitz, Skype, Zoom, FaceTime, and those kind of similar means. Sac County had tried it years ago. I wasn't the building official at the time, but they had problems with it. They want to be able to hand feel that a bolt is tight. They want to physically see all the way around items. Especially final inspections, it's really necessary to get in and do plug tests and different things. So we were able to maintain without the virtual, but I do know that many building departments did do virtual inspections, and they had some challenges in that getting the setup, training the staff, and then really just working through any little bugs that they had with it. And then maybe just doing some virtuals, simplifying which inspections could go there and which not. So that was part of those kind of challenges. Everybody pretty much for the most part that had electronic and online abilities, they closed their permit counters. Others that did not, your smaller jurisdictions, what they did is they kind of closed down, like maybe they only open 2 or 3 days a week, and they would do by appointments. I know one jurisdiction said they would do 17 appointments a day, and they were half-hour appointments. And they would make sure that all the CDC practices were in place when they did that. Let's see, some of the other things that came up were that, you know, so unions became an issue for us, and internal unions in regards to what staff could or couldn't do, and some of the complaints and working through those issues. Sometimes it kind of put a hold on us being able to get out to the public. So that was something that was, we kind of expected it, but not the level that it happened. And we did work through that. Stress levels became an issue. We had a lot of people were some people were just fearful and didn't want to come to work. We had a lot of people that filed on the different executive orders and emergency leaves. So we had several at risk. So that was something to deal with. So our workload here in Sacramento, I have to say that ours maybe did a minor decrease. We had already had a little decrease in February as it started coming on, but I want to say maybe mid-March a little bit, but like my revenue, I dropped a little bit in February, but March, I was actually exceeded the last 2 years. Whereas in 2018, say like I had 1.2 million, and then in March, 1.2, and then this March, it was 1.3. So, and then we dropped just barely a little bit in April, and right now in May, we're matching 2018 and we're up, we're at 1.4. So our workload has not stopped. The inspections, and like we said, I think when people were trying to figure out if they were essential or not, and if getting over the fear of being out there and how it was going to operate, once they kind of got through those moments, inspections started really coming in, and submittals started coming in as they learned how to submit online. So that we had like an increase of, I want to say almost 65% increase just online submittals. And the challenges there, and this was noted by other building departments, was that just being able to work through that, emails and phone calls started really coming in, and they would pile up. And so you had to reassign people, you had to retrain people, you had to do frequently asked questions, and just kind of work through the amount of emails and phone calls that started coming in along with all the submittals. I actually, normally I would have maybe 3 people working on online submittals. I have about 12 working on them right now. So that's kind of like moving people around. And then those individuals, the building departments that did the appointments, were telling me that they would be backed up 3 to 4 weeks on an appointment list. So here you get somebody who wants a permit, say this week, and they'd have to wait 3 or 4 weeks just to come in to do that. And those ones were not offering the online. They were offering like email and using drop boxes, so that was something that they used. And like I said, I think in the end it was just more of the hardest one I think that we had to deal with was the fear that people had. I really think we worked through everything else. It's normal operation. You got something new. How do you deal with it? You know, change your process, have an open mind, be flexible. We deal with that daily. So we were able to adjust. I think what was unknown was absentee of people, them being comfortable, trying to alleviate their fears for them. I still get some people who are still saying that they're not even sure if they're going to return. Some people are just taking it really, some at a high level and some at a low level. So you deal with the different ones. So in close, right now what we're dealing with is the reopening plans and adjusting our workplaces. Basically, you know, adjusting the field workspace in the sense of making sure staff is aware, the field inspectors are aware that the construction sites have requirements that they have to abide by. So they'll take their temperatures when they go in, and they've been all okay with that once we worked with the union with that. And then there was also, you know, just making sure that they would keep their distances out there as well. So, and then doing that in here, we got X's on the floors, we got the little markers, we got the shields up. We're, you know, just looking at how we're going to reopen, and probably we'll do that by keeping doors closed, go to appointments and slowly open the doors 2 days a week, that kind of thing, and stick with the online and some of the remote working. One thing we did find as a bonus is the online submittals and the remote working, staff got, production went up. So even though we didn't have a lot of people doing it, they were able to get a lot of work pumped out. So that's kind of what we dealt with.
Well, thank you, Nancy. That was very informative. It's kind of amazing to me that, well, not really, I guess. More inspections, more people at home doing what they need to do, huh? At this time, do we have any other board comment? Please raise your hand if so. I'm looking through my list and I'm not seeing any. Rick, do we have anything from the public?
No public comments on this item.
Mr. Simpson, I believe we had one more board member from Nevada that was going to comment.
I see it.
On job safety.
Joe.
No. Thank you. Yes. Ms. Tykert brought up a very good point with COVID-19 and specifically with workers' comp and the workforce. And this is something that I think some contractors and employers are going to be faced with, and especially here in Nevada, because we have the casino industry, which has a high concentration of patrons that visit there. So I'm not sure how this will be dealt with, but if you have an employee that decides they feel safer by not coming back to work because of the potential of catching the COVID-19, I'm not sure what kind of position you put yourself in if you terminate the person or if you can terminate the person. So not really clear, but I think this is going to be an issue that's going to be happening. I know, as was mentioned also by Ms. Springer, with the unions, you have issues with prevailing wages and the cost of providing services, I should say benefits to their employees. So I'm seeing that 2 issues are going to happen besides that. The other one is with the business interruption insurance, which is a coverage that is specifically excluded, especially for viruses. So there's going to be a lot of litigation that's going to be occurring coming up this, I think, this next year as we kind of work through this pandemic. So I just wanted to put that out there. I'm not sure what the fallout's going to be or the results, but as an employer, if you do force somebody to come back to work and they do get a COVID-19, that could be a workplace hazard. And so you could be liable under the employer's liability as opposed to the benefits that are provided under the workers' compensation. So those were the comments I wanted to make.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Do we have any other board comments? Down my list, not seeing any. Rick, are we still no public comment?
I believe Mr. Wells had something to add on job safety.
Okay, I'm not seeing a hand, but Mr. Wells, go ahead.
Well, I wasn't sure if I got my my ears clipped on that one, but thank you, California Board, and thank you, Ms. Green. You know, I hear everybody talking about everything that that COVID has been, and it certainly has been a challenge for everybody, and nobody's been immune from the effects of it. Rather than jump into the same old, I kind of had a little different take on it. I also see the good things that happened during COVID. I mean, I see communities coming together. I see food pantries being put together. We actually did one at our company. Oddly enough, our industrial suppliers, when we couldn't get paper goods, had all the paper goods we wanted. So we knocked on their door and set up pantries. And 6 months ago, if you'd have told me that we would have a work from home program, I would have laughed at you. It was brought up old school construction. You have to be there. And we immediately set up work from home, and it worked fantastic. So we now have that in our tool belt where, you know, before COVID, we would have never had that. And I see people going from innovation, and the word that I keep hearing come up is pivot. And now people and businesses and employees, employers, everybody is pivoting. And we heard all kinds of great examples here today of people changing the way that they do business, changing the way that they come to work, cleaning the workspace. I mean, I don't think I ever disinfected my office in my whole life. Now it gets disinfected. The whole office gets disinfected twice a week. It just, and we talk about it as a board. We've talked about it as a company, and the California board brought it up as well. And that is the savings in travel expense. We've talked about possible savings in office expense. So maybe the work from home has some savings benefits for us as well. You know, PPE was no stranger to construction. We've always had it, used it, and we also had the opportunity. For some reason, hospitals and healthcare people couldn't get PPE, and we didn't have any problem buying cases of masks. So, you know, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. We found people just giving N95 masks to healthcare workers because they were re-wearing them and couldn't get them. So I kind of look at it as there's really some good things that came from COVID as well. I'm not saying that COVID is a good circumstance. I'm just saying that looking beyond the challenges, there was some really good things that came about, and businesses pivoting and changing the way that they worked and did business, had some secondary benefits to the challenges that we all faced. That's all I had. Thank you.
I'd like to jump with Chairman Simpson, because I know we've got some other board members that wanted to discuss some of these items. If I could jump in, if you wouldn't mind. Sure. Mr. Menzies, what were some of the main concerns discussed among the task force members during the early stages of the pandemic? And how do you feel Nevada has addressed those concerns to OSHA and state leaders' satisfaction? I think you're on mute.
Thank you, Chairman Lay. I think we're discussing job site safety.
Yes.
As construction's been allowed to continue despite other businesses shuttering due to the lockdown, the industry as a whole has taken the situation very seriously and have been doing everything possible to ensure workers are operating safely and responsibly on the job sites. This includes consulting and following guidelines with OSHA and other regulatory statewide and industries has made sure that workers are adequately educated via safety stand downs on job sites so that workers can be up to speed on exactly how to comply with social distancing requirements and all other essential precautions at this time. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Menzies. Do any other members from Nevada want to comment on this? Let's see if there's any hands being raised. Don't see any. Chairman Simpson, do you know if any of your board members would like to address anything else and they've already on this topic of safety?
I'm looking at my my sheet here, and I'm not seeing any hand raised. Does anyone have a comment they would like to make?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a comment.
Go ahead, David.
And more on the essentiality of construction. We've heard from some of the industry partners on both boards speak on the challenges, the new challenges this COVID-19 has brought to our industry, and moving into the COVID era. But a lot of the what was impacted negatively, at least in what I noticed, was a lot of the interior work, a lot of tenant improvement where you couldn't have that social distancing. But the outside work, the exterior work, still went on after we got over the hump of whether it was essential or not. But with a lot of the exterior work consists of the infrastructure, which our first responders drive on, our the public safety, they drive on that if they have to evacuate or whatnot. So I just wanted to touch on how critical a lot of, especially on the commercial side of how critical commercial is, construction is to our public safety. So that was it.
Thank you, David. Anyone else on either board?
Yeah, if there's nobody else, I'd like to go to a little bit more on the Nevada board side on discussing business practices. And with that, I can kind of elaborate on my own personal experience. I'm a home builder, and we've had to change just about every practice we have because of the COVID-19, and to ensure that we adhere to the governor's restrictions that he's put on us as an essential business. It involves everything to checking in subcontractors when they arrive on site to make sure that they're not experiencing any symptoms, to how we social distance, to figuring out, as Mary said, laying pipe, try carrying in a 5-foot piece of granite that's 5 foot by 5 foot with one person. You can't do it, and you got to be close. So again, we had to address those type of issues and overcome those with how we perform with PPE, to how people's houses, because we just can't go in them like we used to. And of course, safety issues we have to address right away, but non-essential items we put on the back burner, and just try to keep in contact with our customers just to make sure they know we're not ignoring them, because that's, they have to look at it every day. If they've got an issue in their house, especially if they're working from home, they see that item every day, and I'm sure it's not making them happy when they've got an imperfection in their house that they need changed. Also, the way we do business in our office, we started off with the telecommuting when this first hit, and we've slowly worked our way back into the office with about 95% of our employees, because they wanted to come back to the office. So we've gone ahead and done a lot of the PPE things in the office, social distancing on the floor, one-way traffic, plexiglass. We bring lunch in for the employees, because there's not a lot of options for lunch for them, and they're all individually wrapped, and no buffet style buffet lunches or anything like that. So it has changed the way we do business. We're doing a lot more Zoom meetings, and those have become a lot more efficient for us, like a lot of the other members have stated. So it's changed the way we've done business. In a lot of ways, it's better. In a lot of ways, it's a little bit of a burden, but that's kind of the wrap on how we've experienced it. With that, Mr. Leggett, as a landscape contractor, what changes have you had to implement to address the directives and calm customer fears during this time? You might be on mute, Mr. Leggett.
I just figured it out. Thank you. Well, one of the things that we've done, obviously, the good news is our stores have been allowed to stay open, but we are insisting that anyone coming through the store wear a mask. In terms of construction, obviously, we're abiding by the state mandates, social distancing, masks, and so forth. That's all I'm really aware of in terms of the landscaping.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Do any other Nevada board members have any comment to add on this? I'll just go through and see if there's any hands raised. I not see any. With that, Chairman Simpson, do you have any hands raised on your side that would like to address other than the comments your board has already made?
I do not.
Okay, thank you. With that, I'd like Nevada to be able to discuss the last topic, which is on this item, which is challenges with building inspections. Does anybody have any comments on that they've had with Nevada members on building inspections? I'm not really seeing anybody out there, so I'll address on my personal experience. I think in Nevada, the building officials have done an incredible job, at least in Southern Nevada, with adapting to this. At the beginning, we saw a few little delays and things, but as time went on, they did a great job of adapting to not slow us down from everything from permit issuance to field inspections by doing a combination of different type of video, digital inspections to in-person inspections, things that weren't deemed that essential to life safety. They did a really good job of doing the video things on that and anything else, and then doing the combination of course, the in-person ones. They put a lot of their field personnel at home and things like that. But as an industry, at least on the residential side, I'm very impressed with how they were able to adapt to this and not slow down the construction industry as a whole. With that, does anybody else have anything they would like to add to that side of it from the Nevada side? Go ahead and jump in. I'm not seeing any hands. Okay, with that, Chairman Simpson, is there anything your team would like to add to that?
I'm not seeing any hands, Chairman Lai.
Okay, so that concludes our portion of the discussion on item 5 from the Nevada board side. So with that, I will turn it back to you.
Well, that concludes ours as well. I'm not seeing any other board hand raised. Any further comments from the California board? Not seeing anything from the public. Right.
No public comments at this point.
Okay. Well, I would like to just say thank you to our Nevada board members. Apologize for any clunkiness. We're all getting used to the new world a little bit and these types of meetings. So they're a little bit clunky, but I'm sure we'll all get used to them and make them much better. But I really valued a lot of the input today, and I'm sure those that were here got a lot out of it. Public got a lot out of it, and again, I just wanted to thank everyone for being here today and for this joint meeting. Do you have anything you'd like to add, Chairman Lai?
Yes, I would, and I concur. I think this meeting went fantastic considering the new technology and all of us not being totally used to it. So I'm very happy with the results and what we obtained. So I echo your comments on that, Chairman Simpson. With this, though, I would like to ask Ms. Green, have we received a new public comment via email since the start of the meeting?
No, we have not, Mr. Lai.
Thank you. I would like to take this time to extend our appreciation to the California board for today's discussion. We look forward to hosting this meeting with you next year, hopefully in person, but if we have to do it this way, I'm sure we'll get through it and hopefully it'll be a little bit better than what we were able to do this year because of our experience with that. So Ms. Green, do you have anything to add?
I would just like to thank the California board that we've continued this relationship, our working relationship for so long, and great seeing all of your faces, and hope to see you again soon. Thank you again for everything.
Thank you, Ms. Green. With that, may I please get a motion to adjourn the Nevada State Contractors Board meeting?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those not in favor? Of course, none. The Nevada meeting is adjourned at 10:42 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Lay. And with that, the California board meeting, we're going to take a quick recess. It is 10:42, and at 10:52, we shall resume our meeting. So take a quick break.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, this is for those of you either watching us on our webcast on YouTube or Facebook Live. If you do want to participate in this meeting at all, you will need to either check in and log into WebEx, or you will need to phone in. To get those instructions, you would need to go to the actual board meeting agenda. To do that, just go to CSLB's homepage. Up at the top of the page, there is a banner. And on that banner, it links to the YouTube feed. It also links to WebEx. So if you want to participate over your computer, you would click on the WebEx link and register and get online there. It also has the board meeting agenda and the board packet. If you click on the agenda, there's a couple ways. If you want to just call in and not worry about seeing what's happening online or seeing pictures, you can just phone into the number, use the meeting codes that are there, and you can participate via the phone. Now, if you do that and you do want to make a comment, you'll notice in the instructions, you will need to press *9 on your phone. That will raise your hand on my screen. When we get to that point of the public comment, I'll see that your hand is there and I'll be able to call on you. I won't be able to by name because it doesn't give me your name, but your phone will beep and it'll let you know that your phone's being unmuted. So when we get to that point, that's how that'll work. So if you're going to be logging in onto WebEx, the way if you want to participate is you're going to want to open your chat feature. If you mouse over your picture, once you get onto WebEx, you're going to see some circles pop up at the bottom of your screen. One of those circles, it looks like a little call out. If you've looked at comic books and they've got the little thing where somebody's speaking, you see a little circle and little lines going towards someone's mouth. That's it's called a call out sign. So you'll see a button with that call out sign on it. You go ahead and click on that. That will open up your chat feature. And what you're going to want to do is to send a note to the host, which is me, and it just say, I would like to make a comment on this item. I'll also send out notes to you throughout the meeting, letting you know that we're getting to different agenda items. So if there's a specific agenda item you would like to speak about, you do not need to send me a note just generically that you want to comment on like agenda item F or something. Wait till we get to agenda item F, send me the message then. That way I'll be able to keep things in order. If you send me something early, there's a really good chance that I'm going to mess it up and I'm either going to forget it or I'm going to just not note it. So please wait until that agenda item comes up. I'm happy to call on you and make sure that we get your public comments. So that's how that procedure works. If you end up on WebEx, you can send me messages, send it to the host, and I'll try to respond. All right, so that's it. So we are in a break, so stand by, and the regular part of the board meeting, beginning with agenda item E, will be starting in just a few minutes.
By my clock, it's now 10:52, and I'd like to welcome everyone back. We will now cover the Construction State License Board specific agenda items. We begin with agenda item E, presentation of certificates and recognition. It is now my honor to recognize two outstanding board members whose terms are expiring. First, Michael Layton, who was unable to be here with us today, and long-time board member David Diaz. First, Michael Layton was appointed by Assembly Speaker Anthony Rendon in September 2016. During his tenure, Mike served on 4 committees: licensing, legislative, public affairs, and enforcement. His background with the Southern California pipe trades provided strong construction knowledge. Mike was always willing to step in as committee chair when needed, and always remembered consumer protection is the highest priority for the board. Mike's participation in board meetings and service to staff on enacting service and repair consumer protection measures is very much appreciated. Thank you, Mike, from the board. Does any board members have comments for Mike? Not seeing any. Next, I would like to recognize board member David Diaz. David was appointed by Governor Edmund Brown Jr. in April 2011 and has been twice reappointed in June 2012 and June 2016. When I said David was a longtime board member, I wasn't kidding, because David has been a member of the board for 9 years. As business manager for the sheet metal workers, David has provided CSLB and the public a tour and a meeting location at the sheet metal workers training facility in Fairfield. David has worked closely with staff to develop strategies to achieve HVAC permit compliance and effective enforcement strategies relating to heating and air conditioning scams. In addition, David may have set a board member record for notifying CSLB staff of unlicensed practices. Interesting, many of these unlicensed contractors were working in homes in his Pleasanton neighborhood. We are not sure about your choice of neighbors, David. Speaking of neighbors, David also owns a second home in South Lake Tahoe where he's at today. David's South Lake Tahoe neighbors include black bears and a few unlicensed contractors. David has reported he gets along with bears better than the neighbors. On a more serious note, I will now read the plaque that David I should have already gotten. The Contractors State License Board thanks David Diaz, board member from 2011 to 2020, and board chair from 2014 to 2015. In recognition of your outstanding contributions to the Contractor State License Board, the people of California, and the construction industry. Thank you for a job well done. David, do you have any comments you would like to make at this time? David?
Yeah, I just had to take myself off mute, sorry. You guys can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Dave, this is Susan. You look like you're going into the witness protection program. So could you turn on a light so we could at least see your smiling face?
Oh, you guys don't want to see that.
Oh, we do.
It's actually, I don't know what the deal is with this here, but I've been trying to get it to go lighter, and this really hasn't been working too well. There's my light. So is that better? Nope. I don't know. I think it's the camera.
That's all right. At least we know it's you.
It's better now. Okay. So yeah, I've been a board member since I think it was April 2011. It's been my honor to work for the state of California. It's absolutely been my honor to work with the rest of the board members. It's been amazing. And especially my honor to work with the staff at CSLB. You guys have been great. You guys, every time I've asked for something or talk about it like Dave says, I've been asked or I've talked to Dave an awful lot about unlicensed contractors as I walk out of my house in Pleasanton and look around and, okay, this guy's not licensed, this guy's not licensed, this guy's not licensed. And it just gets ridiculous now. And my neighbors really don't particularly like me much because of that. But, oh, well, one of the neighbors said something to me and I said, and check it out. I swore an oath to the Constitution of the state of California, not to you. And that's the way it is. And we're going to go and fight this underground economy and all that. Didn't make a real friend there, but oh well. But again, like I said, it's been an absolute honor to work for the state of California on the CSLB and with everybody involved. And I mean, I'm retiring in 8 weeks from today. And it's been actually, I've probably sit on 50 committees, state and national, and for my local, and this has actually been the funnest job I've ever done in my life, and it's been amazing. So thank you so much.
David, this is Johnny. I just want everybody to be aware. Dave, I consider David a personal friend, and as I came on the board, as I'm sure everybody did, you think you know a lot about the board, but I got to tell you, man, you really helped me when I came on, and I've always considered you not just a friend but a mentor on the State Contractors License Board, and I've always appreciated your friendship, man. And retiring is always a great thing, and sure the Sheet Metal Workers Union will absolutely miss you. You're a very, very brilliant and great guy, and I just don't know anybody's got a bad word to say about you. So thank you for all your hard work. I think we got a couple other comments. Kevin, I see your hand is raised. Kevin Albanese.
It is. Thank you very much, Johnny. Hey, Dave, I just want to wish you nothing but great success and happiness going forward. You were, I think you're the only one that's still on the board that was on before and you've always been the consummate professional. You definitely have a great labor background, but when you were here, you brought that perspective, but never put it in front of the consumer. And I've always respected you for that. I wish you nothing but great success in your retirement. Thanks for being a friend and a mentor on the board. And it's been great working with you, my friend.
Thank you so much.
I see David wants to say a few words. Dave.
Yeah, I do. I want to echo what Kevin said. David Diaz has truly been a mentor for me, and he's been a mentor for much of the staff here. He has opened doors for us as it relates to the heating and air conditioning industry and the need for enhanced permit compliance. He's provided so many ideas that have been beneficial. And we had a joint meeting with the Nevada board, and he's helped us in the past in securing sting sites that were near the Nevada border. And so we really appreciate that. It'll always be remembered for two stings that he helped us with. And one, we had a joint sting with Nevada where we had a sting site on their side and they had a sting site in California. We had the same person show up on consecutive days at both sites to bid unlicensed. And what was really funny about it is it was done we had video, and he wore the exact same clothes to both stings. And I remember last year, it was last year, the year before, we were going to do a joint sting, and it snowed in May. But again, David, just really want to thank you for all that you've done to help and how accessible you've been over the years. I wish you well in your retirement.
Thank you so much. One other thing is that I've never thought when I got on the board that I'd do my last board meeting, from Zoom or whatever this is, WebEx, in shorts, barefooted, and no tie, shirt and tie on it. So that's a little different.
Yeah, I hear you, Dave. That's it's definitely a change for guys like us not to have a tie on, sitting in our sandals, Do we have any other board comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, through the chair. Dave, I just want to congratulate you. Thank you for your service to the board, and wish you the best in your new endeavors. And I don't know if you still plan on taking that trek from I don't know, what is it, the Nevada border up to Tahoe. But if you do, if you haven't, and you're going to go through with it, be safe. All right. Best of luck.
I will. Thank you.
Anyone else? Marlo.
Sorry, trying to figure out how to raise my hand. I had to rotate my phone. I just want to say to both of you guys, it's been a pleasure working with you, and thank you very much for everything that you've contributed, and enjoy retirement day, and hopefully you won't be a stranger.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Marlo. Okay, with that, do we have any public comment?
No public comment at this point.
Okay. Well, let's get on to agenda item F, review and discussion of statistical information of CSLB operations. For this meeting, instead of each division providing a written and verbal program update, statistical information was prepared for the licensing and enforcement divisions and compiled into one document. Before I highlight the statistics, I would like Dave Fote to tell us how CSLB has been able to achieve its core functions during this pandemic.
Thank you, Chair Simpson. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all CSLB staff throughout the state for their dedication and commitment in meeting the challenges presented by the COVID-19 pandemic. Their ongoing hard work during this difficult time has ensured that the CSLB has continued to meet its consumer protection mandate. And I'd like to highlight three individuals, and if you'll just bear with me for a second. The first is our board chair, Johnny Simpson. When CSLB first received notification in March from the Department of Consumer Affairs that CSLB would need to close its offices, I contacted Johnny and I said, well, we need to take steps to protect our staff. And I still remember well what he told me. He said, we have to meet our core function, but we have to do everything we can to keep our staff healthy. That our goal is to not have staff become infected. And Johnny suggested, let's do what we can to allow them to telecommute. Let's set a goal and let's make it happen. His support for staff during this pandemic has been unwavering. And I just want to thank you, Johnny, for all that you've done and how accessible you've been. I'll tell you, you can send Johnny an email or call him at any time and he answers his phone. So thank you, Johnny. Now, the next step, though, was to make this happen. We knew we had to quickly provide equipment to staff that hadn't previously worked in the field. We also knew this was going to be very challenging, and it was going to be, I think, stressful for staff to be told that they now had to work from home when they had worked in an office environment, and we needed to make sure that they had the equipment they need. Now, fortunately, we have a chief deputy registrar here by the name of Tanya Cochran, that you all know. And Tanya has more administrative experience, I believe, than anybody in state government. And she really brought that to the forefront and obtaining and repurposing 121 laptops. She made sure that staff not only had the training that they needed, but also understood that there are security protocols that have to be complied with. And she took it a step further by conducting daily meetings with managers throughout the board to make sure that they had the information and the resources to continue to be successful. She called them our business continuity meetings, and I can tell you firsthand that the staff very much appreciated those meetings and all that she did to provide them the assistance and the tools that they needed. And finally, Rick Lopes, our Chief of Public Affairs. Rick developed a daily bulletin, and this was very helpful to staff that had their work environment abruptly changed. And he solicited information from staff as to what they felt would be interesting. He kept all staff informed on a daily basis of what was happening with the board, made sure that he really reinforced the importance of their work. And I will tell you something, that daily bulletin was distributed every morning by 7:30, and the staff really appreciated it, Rick. I appreciate it, so thank you. So thank all three of you for all that you've done to continue to make the board successful during this COVID-19 pandemic.
'25. Am I up? Am I up? Yeah, okay. Let's go to page 25. We begin with licensing statistics. This page best summarizes operations before and now during the pandemic. Over the past 12 months, our licensing population has declined by 1,237 licensees. At this time, our overall population count remains steady, but staff will need to continue to closely monitor licensed population. In the midst of this pandemic, the board stayed on course and launched the sole owner online renewal on April 6th, which renews the license in real time. In addition, as public counters were closed, IT staff moved several other payment transactions online, including paying for all other license renewal types. You can see on page 25 under licensing statistics that in April, 2,701 renewals, which is the online owner renewals and kiosk renewals, were paid online, equating to approximately 21% of the license renewed. On page 28, renewals processed in March and April 2020 exceeded renewals processed in the prior 2 years. In April 2020, staff processed over 13,000 renewals, an increase of more than 4,000 over the prior year. A few areas where the pandemic and the 6-foot physical spacing requirements has most affected staff workloads in waiver applications, record certification, and caller centers. Fortunately, our IT division moved quickly to procure additional laptops to enable licensing staff to work remotely with access to required databases. Further, staff have been redirected within licensing and other CSLB divisions to assist with licensing processing workloads. The call center is one area where it has been difficult to fully staff because of the need to maintain physical distances between staff and infrastructure necessary, such as equipment, software, to operate the call center. To address this, 2 emails have been set up so that consumers, licensees, and applicants can email their questions instead of waiting on hold. Staff are responding to email inquiries within 24 hours of receipt. Additionally, staff are exploring options to set up workstations in other areas of the building to provide the 6-foot distancing. Moving to enforcement. This fiscal year, CSLB is receiving 1,562 complaints per month, 765 fewer complaints than in the prior fiscal year. Telecommuting has been beneficial to staff by allowing them to focus on their older cases. As of April 2020, 78 of the 3,766 open complaints exceeded 270 days in age. That makes 2 months in a row, March and April, aged cases have been less than the board goal of 100 days. I want to recognize enforcement staff for their success in resolving administrative citations. Through informal settlement conferences, 343 administrative licensees and non-licensee settlement conferences were conducted, with more than 80% settled. To date, more than 1.3 million in civil penalties were collected. Is there any comment on any of this? No action is required on this. Do we have any board comment? I see Marlo. Do you have your hand up, or was that on a previous issue? Previous issue. Okay. Do we have any public comment, Rick?
No public comment on this item.
Okay, thank you. All right, with that, let's move on to G, licensing. The Construction Management Education Account Program. For that, I will turn it over to Licensing Chair David Diaz.
Okay, you guys can hear me again, right?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. I just want to make sure. Thank you, Johnny. Page 39 contains the background of the Construction Management Education Account Program, including its purpose, the awarding procedure, and a list of advisory committee members that review the proposed award amounts annually. In the past, board members have received a letter from the registrar each year with the proposed award amounts for institutions that had applied. Board members were given 30 days to ask questions or request further review from the board. We are recommending a new process that requires a board vote on the awarded amount. On page 41, you will see staff recommendations for the awards. This is a distribution proposal that we are already sent to the board members on November 1, 2019. Staff is also asking that we formally modify our procedure so that all future grant awards will require a board vote. I recommend this should occur at each December meeting. Before I take any comments, I'd like to ask the board members to consider two following motions. Direct staff to distribute the 2020 CMEA grant awards according to the recommendations on page 41, and direct staff to bring the CMEA grant award proposal annually to the board for its approval at the December board meetings. Any board comments? None? Okay. Rick, are any members of the public who wish to make comment?
No public comments.
Thank you. Is there a motion from the board?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any board member comments? Rick, again, are there any members from the public who wish to make a comment?
No public comment.
Okay. Please, can you please take roll call?
Johnny Simpson?
Aye.
Kevin Albanese?
Aye.
Tamara?
Aye.
Maggie Beltran?
Aye.
David Pelletore?
Aye.
Dave Diaz?
Aye.
Susan Granzella?
Aye.
Anna Love?
Aye.
Arlen Richardson?
Aye.
Here. Jim Ruane?
Aye.
Nancy Springer? Excuse me, absent. Mary Tykert?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Felice. That concludes the licensing update.
Thank you, David. Next, we'd like to move on to agenda item H, legislation. For that, I would like to turn it over to Chair Augie Beltran.
Thank you, Chair. We're now on agenda item H, legislation program update. The first item is review, discussion, and possible action on 2019-2020 legislation. On page 45 of your packets begins the analysis of 6 active bills in the legislature that the board will be asked to take a position on. 5 of the bills, CSLB is directly involved in or sponsored. 1 of the bills, AB 2471, CSB is not involved in, but staff is recommending the board take a position on. Regarding the 5 bills involving CSLB, on April 7th, 2020, Registrar David Fote explained in an email update to board members that the legislative chair authorize staff to send support letters to the legislature on CSLB approved legislation. This was done with my support and in compliance with page 15 of the board procedure manual, which states, and I quote, in the event that time constraints preclude board action, the board delegates to the chair of the legislative committee for the authority to take action on legislation. The decision was made because the authors of the measure were asking for CSLB support, and due to COVID-19, the board was unable to quickly convene to take a position on these bills. Today is the first opportunity for the board to formally support these 5 CSLB approved bills as introduced by the legislature. However, the board has previously reviewed, vetted, and directed staff to pursue these measures at the board meetings of December 2018, September 2019, and December 2019. I'll take the bills out of order from what's listed on the board meeting agenda. First, reviewing the 5 CSLB approved bills and then come back to the final bill, AB 2471. I will note that the bill number and corresponding page of the board packet so we may all follow along. After each bill, I will ask for a motion to support as currently pending before the legislature. Chief Jay is available to answer any of the questions about the measures should there be any. All right, first one. AB 2210 Aguilar Curry, Contractors Violations Disciplinary Actions. We're on page 47 of your packets. This is a CSLB sponsored measure. The bill allows CSLB to discipline a licensee upon a final order from DOSH establishing that a licensee failed to provide the proper tree safety training or equipment to employees. Regardless of the severity of the incident, it extends the statute of limitations for CSLB to initiate discipline action against a contractor for a labor code violation from 180 days to 18 months. This change will provide CSLB and partnering state agencies with the time needed to identify violations, perform a thorough investigation, and to achieve consistency with CSLB's general statute of limitation found in Business and Professions Code 7091. The bill was heard on May 21st in the Assembly and referred to appropriations with a consent calendar recommendation. Do any board members have a question on this bill? Rick, anybody in the public have a question?
Nothing on this measure.
At this time, I will take a motion.
So move.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Once again, Rick, are there any public comments?
No public comments.
Board member comments? Seeing none. Elise, please take a roll call.
Johnny Simpson,
Aye.
Kevin Albanese,
Aye.
Frank Altamura,
Yes.
Lucky Beltran,
Aye.
David Delatorre,
Aye.
Dave Diaz, Dave,
Aye. Sorry.
Susan Granzella,
Aye.
Hello?
Aye.
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 Paul Richardson,
Aye.
Jimmy Wayne,
Aye.
Nancy Springer is absent. Mary Tykert.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Now we move on to AB 2232 Grayson, Contractors Renewal of Licenses. We're on page 48 of your packets, and this is also a CSLB sponsored measure. This bill authorizes the registrar to retroactively renew a license automatically within 90 days of expiration, provided a complete renewal is received with appropriate fees. The bill was heard on May 21st in the Assembly B&P and referred to appropriations with the consent calendar recommendation. Any board members have questions on this bill? Rick, public?
No comment. No, nothing. Sorry, nothing from the public.
Okay, I'll take a motion at this time, please.
Make motion?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Rick, any public?
No comments from the public.
Anybody from the board? Nope. Please take roll call.
Johnny Simpson,
Aye.
Kevin Albanese,
Aye.
Frank Altamura,
Yes.
Lucky Beltran,
Aye.
David Delatorre,
Aye.
Dave Diaz,
Aye.
Susan Granzella,
Aye.
Dana Love,
Aye.
Noel Richardson. Aye.
Was I sorry?
Jim Wayne,
Aye.
Nancy Springer is absent. Mary Tyker.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okey doke. Moving on. Now we're at AB 2471, which is moving currently through business and professions. Wait a minute. Oh, I'm sorry. We're skipping 2471 and moving to AB 3087, Bro, Professions and Vocations. This is on page 51 of your packets, and it's also a CSLB sponsored measure. CSLB does not currently have the authority to contract for the administration of its license examinations. This bill provides CSLB authority to contract with a third-party vendor for the administration of its licensing examinations, which will greatly expand applicant access to testing services and save CSLB over $500,000 a year. This bill does not change CSLB occupational analysis and examination development, which will still be performed in-house. This bill was heard on May 21st in Assembly Business and Professions and referred to appropriations with a consent calendar recommendation. Any board members have a question on this?
Marlo, I have a question.
Go ahead, Marlo.
The third-party vendors, does that have any thing to do with what we're currently experiencing with COVID and our, I guess, the prohibition of using third-party vendors? Or if that bill is approved, will we not have to worry about that?
Registrar, what you got?
Yeah, well, I attend to a lot of meetings that have included third-party vendors, and the Department of Consumer Affairs does use third-party vendors now. And the advantage they have is that they've already started testing applicants where we're still waiting to get our necessary PPE. It's going to allow us to leverage resources with other state agencies to provide greater service to our applicants. And also, eventually, there might be an opportunity to do some kind of online testing where you would have a proctor overseeing one or two people taking the exam. So there's a lot of advantages to the applicant if we were able to contract with a private vendor.
Good, thank you. Any other questions from the board? Rick, anybody from the public?
No comment on this bill.
Okay, I would take a motion.
So motion.
It sounds like I got a motion and a second. Any questions from the board? Rick, anything from the public?
Nothing from the public.
All right, Feliz, hit it.
Johnny Simpson,
Aye.
Kevin Albanese,
Aye.
Frank Altamura,
Yes.
Lucky Beltran,
Aye.
David Delatorre,
Aye.
Dave Diaz,
Yeah.
Susan Granzella,
Aye.
Diana Love,
Aye.
Noel Richardson,
Aye.
Jim Wayne,
Aye.
Nancy Springer is absent. Mary Tykert.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, SB 1189 McGuire, contracting businesses, home improvement, residential property. This is on page 52 of your packet. CSLB partnered with the author on this bill. This bill creates a new classification of licensed contractor as a subdivision within the existing general building contractor classification called residential remodeling contracting. Also clarifies that unlicensed persons contracting for home improvement restoration projects in declared disaster zones are subject to felony prosecution. This bill was heard on May 18th in Senate Business and Professions and was unanimously referred to Senate Approach. Does the board have any questions on this? Rick, public?
Yeah, we do have one member of the public that would like to comment. Richard Markison, please go ahead and make your comments.
Yeah, good morning, board, and thank you. Richard Markison on behalf of the Western Electrical Contractors Association. We remain opposed to the provision that would permit a B2 license to do minor electrical work. WECA has long maintained that the electrician certification law should apply irrespective of the license classification of the employee and contractor. We're currently working, and we certainly appreciate the effort of your staff to craft narrow exceptions to have a very narrow ability for the B2 to do electrical work, only replacing certain items. However, WECA still strongly believes that for electrician certification to be meaningful in California, it should apply to any electrician doing any work, irregardless of his or her employer. We are crafting a new amendment that we will be sending to your staff to attempt to resolve this issue. And we appreciate your continued efforts and look forward to working with your staff, hopefully, and be able to remove our opposition. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Any other comments, Rick?
No, that is the only public comment on this bill.
Okay. Staff recommendation is the board support this bill. Is there a motion for support?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second for support. Rick, any other public comment?
No, no further comment.
Any other board comment? Please call roll.
Johnny Simpson.
Aye.
Kevin Albanese.
Aye.
Frank Altamura.
Yes.
Lucky Beltran.
Aye.
David Delatorre.
Aye.
Dave Diaz.
Yeah.
Susan Granzella.
Aye.
Diana Love.
Aye.
Marla Richardson. Yes. So that I.
So it's an aye.
Jimmy Wayne.
Marlo, you're on mute.
Aye.
Nancy Springer is absent. Mary Tigard. Motion passes.
Okie dokie. SB 1474, Senate Business, Professions, and Economic Development Committee bill. We're on page 54 of your packets. This is the Senate Business and Professions Committee's annual omnibus bill. As explained in the analysis, in December, the board approved several technical, non-substantive proposals for improving the contractor's license law. These were later accepted by the Senate Business and Professions Committee and are now in this omnibus. They're in the bill. Okay, you got to forgive me. I'm wearing bifocals and it's killing me. As this is an omnibus bill, there are many sections unrelated to CSLB in the bill. I'll briefly remind the board of 3 sections containing CSLB approved ideas that are in this bill. Remove the apostrophe from the following official titles in the law: Contractor State License Law, Contractor State License Board, and the Contractor's License Fund. Replace a previously existing provision of the Contractor State License Law that was accidentally deleted by CSLB sponsored AB 3087 Bro back in 2018, relating to cash deposits in lieu of a contractor's bond. And 3, place CSLB's authority to issue a letter of admonishment into its own section of law. The bill was heard on May 18th in Senate Business and Professions and was unanimously referred to Senate Appropriations. Do any board members have a comment on this bill? How about the public, Rick?
No public comment on this bill.
Okay. Chair will take a motion on this bill for support.
Motion to support.
Second.
Anybody going to make a motion?
So moved.
Okay. I don't know, Rick, if maybe it's my Wi-Fi, but things seem to be slowing down on my end.
I'm going to blame it on your bifocals. Everything looks good. I think it.
There's a motion and a second. Rick, is there any questions from the public?
No further comment.
Okay. Any questions from the board on? Okay. Any comments on the board from the board on this bill, the motion? Okay, we got to go live at some point again. Please, I'll take a vote on this, please.
Jody Simpson,
Aye.
Kevin Albanese,
Aye.
Okay, my vote's sinking really quick
Yes.
here.
Augie Beltran,
Belize? I'll take roll call, please.
yeah, are you ready?
Yeah, please, this is Rick. I'm going to jump in for just a second. I've had a couple board members and obviously including Augie, that they're saying their audio has gotten really slow. Other board members, it seems to be just fine.
Mm-hmm.
Never had this problem before. Not sure how to troubleshoot this.
Yeah,
it sounds like Augie definitely is on some kind of a delay, which doesn't make sense. The only thing
can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can. One thing you may want to do, Augie, is, and also it looks like Frank's having audio problems too, is you do have the ability to call in on the phone and join that. So on your screen,
Please.
On your screen, if you go up to the connections, the communicate button, and click on the communicate button, and go to audio connection, it says you're currently using your computer for audio. You can actually have the system call you. So. Oh, thank you. Augie looks like he is voting his aye for that. But if you want to go ahead and switch that over, have the system call you on your telephone. You'll still have your computer on, but you'll get your audio over the telephone, and that may take care of your delay.
Ready to continue?
Yeah, go ahead, please, because I believe I only have 2 of them. Looks like David and Missy, a couple of staff people, but I think the other board members are okay. If you have a problem with your audio, board members, please send me a message on chat, and I'll note that.
David Delatorre,
Aye.
Dave Diaz,
Aye.
Susan Granzella,
Aye.
Diana Love,
Aye.
Marla Richardson,
Aye.
Jimmy Wayne,
Aye.
Nancy Springer's absent, Mary Tiger.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Rick, I don't know if you see Augie's sign, but he's asking you to call his cell phone.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I can hear you now, Augie.
Gotcha.
Okay, can you hear me? Am I live?
You're live, Augie. We passed the motion.
All righty. On behalf of the board, I'd like to congratulate CSLB. Okay, I must still be delayed.
Okay, this is Rick. I will jump in again just in case, Augie, if you are listening, it may be delayed, but to change your audio, you go into the communicate at the top of your screen, click on the communicates, and it goes to audio connection. You can change the way you're connecting by audio. You can actually have the WebEx system call you. So pull up the audio connection. You can switch and have it call you. Just put your phone number in and the system will call you, and you can join the meeting back up audio-wise. You can keep your computer on.
Oh.
You're still struggling with that. Okay, I don't know, Mr. Chair, if you need to adjourn or to recess for a couple of minutes, but I'll address this as quickly as we can.
I'm sorry.
I'm going to call Augie right now and talk about the communicate option.
And Johnny, what do you think about a quick break, 5-minute break?
All right, let's take a quick 5-minute break while we get this worked out. It's 11:39. Let's try to be back at.
I don't have that communicate button up. I can't. That's what I'm trying to.
Okay, this is Rick. We are in the break, but I'm going to keep talking so people can test the system. If you're receiving audio, you should be. Augie, looks like you're trying to talk. I'll unmute you. There, Augie, are you able to hear me now?
I can hear you. I don't know if how live I am with you.
Yes, you are. I see you in real time. I can see you and I can hear you live.
Yeah, it sounds good, Augie, and it looks good.
Yeah.
Okay.
So again, if any other people are having problems with this, is to try the audio option. Mr. Chair, it sounds like we've got Augie, so that's that we may be good to come back into session when you're ready.
All right, let's come back into session, and Augie, if you can continue.
Okay, let's try it again. Did we pass the last motion? Was that passed?
Yes.
Okay. So now we're on behalf of the board, I'd like to congratulate CSLB staff on the preliminary successes with these important board-approved measures. With the legislature's focus on COVID-19,
getting hearing dates for bills, particularly with the shortened legislative calendar, has been a challenge. Now for the bill we did out of order on the agenda, AB 2471, Senior Citizens Rescission of Contracts. Okay, now we're on page 49 of your packet. This is not a CSLB-sponsored measure. The CSLB was asked by the sponsors of this measure, the San Diego County District Attorney, if the CSLB could support this measure. This bill extends the right to cancel certain contracts for persons 65 years of age or older from these 3 business days to 5 business days. Specifically, it grants senior citizens an extended right to cancel specified home improvement contracts and properly assess clean energy, PACE, assessment contracts. The bill was heard on May 27th in Assembly Judiciary and passed to the Assembly floor. Do any board members have any comments on this item? Does anybody from the public have a comment on the item, Rick?
No public comment.
Okay. Next item. Oh, there's no, okay, so Chief, are you looking for a motion on this one? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
So this one, I take a motion of support on this.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Rick, is there any public comment?
No comments.
Okay, any more board comments? Please take roll.
Johnny Simpson,
Aye.
Kevin Albanese,
Aye.
Frank Altamura,
Yes.
Augie Beltran,
Aye.
David Delatorre, absent. Dave Diaz,
Yes.
Susan Granzella,
Aye.
Diana Love, Aye. Marla Richardson,
Aye.
Jimmy Wayne,
Aye.
Nancy Springer, absent. Mary Taggart.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, item G, CSLB legislative proposal raising minor work exemption from 500 to 1,000. This item is an update only, not an action item. There is no corresponding packet content. At its September 2019 meeting, the board approved a legislative proposal for staff to seek an author for a bill that would raise the minor work exemption, license exemption provided for in the contractor state license law from $500 to $1,000. Staff did locate an author who was willing to author the bill, and draft legislative language was obtained from legislative counsel. However, opposition was received with concerns about raising the threshold for unlicensed practice where there is an avenue for employers to circumvent tax withholding and employers' compensation insurance requirements in the developing gig economy. CSLB staff was in the process of working on the language that may resolve concerns received when the legislature changed its priorities because of COVID-19. As a result, this proposal is not being pursued at this time. Staff will bring the matter back to the board before taking additional action on this proposal. Next item, review, discussion, and possible action regarding previously board-approved proposed rulemaking to amend Title 16 of the California Code of Regulations. Now we're on page 57. This agenda item involves the continuing regulatory rulemaking that this board initially approved staff to undergo back in March 2019. This rulemaking is a direct result of AB 2138-2, which was signed by Governor Brown in September 2018. As a reminder, AB 2138 dealt with removing barriers to licensure for applicants with criminal convictions in their background. To comply with AB 2138, CSLB regulations must change. The bill's provisions become active July 2021. The CSLB is on track for these regulations to be finalized and in effect by that deadline. For a quick background, the board approved the regulatory language and authorized staff to initiate the rulemaking in March of 2019. During review of the draft language, staff and legal counsel identified needed revisions to the language, primarily for the consistency and accuracy. As a result, in September 2019, the board voted to rescind the prior text and approve a new text with changes. As the update in your packet for this item explains, on April 28, 2020, staff held the required public hearing at this rulemaking and received comments from the public about this rulemaking. The comments received from the public began on page 59. The board must now vote on proposed responses to these comments, as well as some of the final amendments to the regulatory text recommended by DCA legal counsel that are in the next agenda item following the one we're about to cover. So, review, discussion, and possible action regarding comments received during the 45-day comment period. Now we're on page 65. This item summarizes the public comments the board received on its rulemaking to change its regulations as a result of AB 2138. This section of the packet provides draft formal responses to those comments that staff is asking for the board to approve. But before we do that, I'll ask Danielle Rogers, a regulations attorney for the DCA, to briefly summarize the public comments and the board's proposed responses that staff is asking the board to consider adopting. Danielle, please.
Good morning, everyone. This is Danny Rogers. I'm Regulations Counsel to the board, and I'm here to present item H2, which is consideration of adopting amendments to the board's AB 2138 package and approval of the proposed responses. As you sign your board materials, the board staff only received a single comment letter from multiple parties. The proposed responses are contained in your materials. I can go over them, or I can simply open it up to questions to see if you'd like to ask any questions of me.
Doesn't look like there's any questions, Danielle.
Okay, can a motion be made at this point?
I have my hand raised.
I'm sorry, I don't have a thing that shows a hand, so I'll have to see you actually physically lift your hand or something. Oh, there you go. Go ahead, Diana.
Okay, I would like to hear the summary.
Certainly. So beginning on page 74 of your materials, it's actually page 66, but when you scroll through the document, it begins at page 74. The first comment stated that the proposed regulations left some gaps in the regulatory scheme in Business and Professions Code sections 480, 481, 482, and 493. The comment stated that the proposed regulations fail to meet and implement these statutes. The comment also stated that the proposed regulations fall short of the intent of the bill, which includes combating discrimination against people with records who have demonstrated rehabilitation and seek to establish themselves professionally. And we are recommending that the board reject this comment based on the fact that we believe the proposal has captured the required legislative elements. Specifically, the purpose of the regulations is to clarify the substantial relationship criteria and the criteria for rehabilitation. And we've done those in the proposed regulations. These regulations would adopt all of the following criteria, which would assist the board in implementing a balanced approach to evaluating an applicant's eligibility for licensure. The first factor is the nature and gravity of the offense, the number of years elapsed since the date of the offense, and the nature and duties of the contractor or home improvement salesperson. Clarifying how to determine whether the crime is substantially related and clarifying the factors that will be considered should assist applicants and licensees with demonstrating their rehabilitation. So we are recommending that the board make no changes to the proposed regulations in response to this comment. Anyone have any questions about that one?
Danny, we do have a public comment.
Okay, do we want to have those now, or shall we hold them until the end of the summary?
Let's go ahead and take the public comment.
Okay, the public comment comes from Lynn Salmon. Lynn, go ahead and make your comments.
Does a contractor for state license for legislation considering
issuing a license on a provisional basis without requiring a test.
This is Rick. I'll repeat that in case you weren't able to hear it. It was a little garbly. Is the Contractors Board legislation considering issuing licenses on a provisional basis without requiring a test?
Registrar, could you answer that, please?
We're not considering changing our test requirement at this time. That would be something that the board would need to consider if they wanted to consider at a future board meeting. It's not on this agenda. There's no steps being taken to remove the test requirement that currently exists.
Okay, is there any other public
That's the only
comment?
comment. That's the only comment at this point.
I don't see any hands up physically. So the staff recommendation is, I'm going to read that right now. It's at the bottom of page 73. Is that the board approve the responses as drafted to the public comments received on April 27th, 2020 on the board's proposed rulemaking regarding Title 16, Division 8, California Code of Regulations, Section 868, 868.1, 868, 869.5, and 869.9, and authorize staff to make any non-substantive changes to the board's comments for inclusion in the final statement of reasons. Is there a motion in support of that?
Motion to accept.
So moved.
Staff recommendation.
Got a motion?
Second.
Okay. Any public comment, Rick?
Yes, we do have one, somebody from the telephone. So stand by. You should hear a tone on your phone when I unmute you. Okay, go ahead and make your comments. Caller, do you have a comment?
Hello.
Yes, please.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we do. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'd like to address the distinguished board and served many years as a general contractor and also as an IE and arbitrator and earthquake response team member through the years. The input that I wanted to speak about today is with regard to application. When I applied back in '86, if you stated that you didn't have any convictions, that meant nothing about felonies. If you had a felony, that's something that would have had to been stated, but misdemeanors were not a part of what was considered at that time. Well, back in '08, I decided to take my test to become licensed in painting, and I did so and passed it. Well, back in 1980, there was a misdemeanor that was taken care of years ago. Obviously, that's now 40 years. And what happened was my license was, some months later, I got a notice saying that I lied on my application and my license was denied for painting. Now, I think that I've had all these years experience, never had a violation against my license, never had any incidents since that 1980 misdemeanor. And I didn't think that since it was a misdemeanor, it was worthy of putting it down. So I checked the no box as I did when I first applied for my license. So I think that it may be some kind of amendment might be in order here for those folks who have had a license for many years and came in under a different pretense when the laws were different, with no violations against their license or lawsuits against the business, might be exempt from something like that, because I put in my fingerprints and did the whole thing that I needed to do. But DOJ, that particular incident popped up, and next thing I know, I lied on my application and it was denied. So, with all the experience that I have with the board and, on the IE program as an arbitrator and earthquake response team member, I think that I felt kind of slighted about that. So, and I'm not here to complain or whine about it. I just think that maybe in the future, if somebody else has a similar situation where they apply for a sub-license after having had a B license or any other license for that matter, and then applied for their sub-license and get it denied, it just seems out of kilter.
Thank you for your public comment. If you can hit *9 when you're done, and thank you. That's the only public comment we have on this.
Thank you. Is there any board comment? I don't see any hands. Felice, please call roll.
Call from benefit gender.
Johnny Simpson,
Aye.
Kevin Albanese,
Aye.
Hold on, Felice.
Frank Altamira. Oh,
Yes.
Felice, hold on. Is somebody else trying to say something? Okay, I just heard a voice over what you were saying. Go ahead, Felice. Sorry.
Augie Beltran,
Aye.
David Delatorre,
Aye.
Dave Diaz,
Yes.
Susan Granzella,
Aye.
Diana Love,
Aye.
Paula Richardson,
Aye.
Jim Wayne,
Aye.
Nancy Springer is absent, Mary Tykert.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, B, review, discussion, and possible action regarding adoption of proposed amendments. Now we're on page 74 of your packets. We're still talking about the rulemaking package that was necessary because of AB 2138. This item outlines the modifications to the originally approved and notice text of the rulemaking itself, the actual regulatory language. Some amendments to that language are being recommended by legal counsel following the hearing of the rulemaking. In the packet are the relatively minor and technical changes to the language the board is being asked to approve. Danielle, do you have any comments about the proposed changes to this language?
Hello, everyone. Again, it's Danny Rogers. As was stated, the proposed modifications are included in your materials. They are minor. The additions are shown in double underline and the deletions are shown in double strike through. And just to give you the background, these changes are proposed for clarity in the regulations based on discussions and suggestions made by the Office of Administrative Law on another rulemaking package. So the purpose of proposing them here and now is to facilitate and quicken the process for getting the regulations finalized by OAL. Should you approve these changes, they will go out for a 15-day comment. Should any further responses be received, those will be reviewed and responded to for your approval. But if none, that will close the rulemaking record and we can get the package moving up to the OAL. I'm happy to answer any questions you have about the language.
Is there anything from the public, Rick?
No, nothing from the public on this item.
Anything from the board? Any hands? I don't see any hands. Felice, please call roll.
Do we need a motion in a second?
Oh, I'm sorry. Do we have a motion to support?
So moved.
I better read staff recommendation. Staff recommendation is that board direct staff take all steps necessary to complete the rulemaking process, including sending out the modified text for an additional 15-day public comment period. If after the 15-day public comment period, no further comments are received, authorize the registrar to make any non-substantive changes to the proposed regulation and adopt the proposed regulations as described in modified text notice. Does the maker of the motion accept the recommendation?
Yes.
Does the second recognize the recommendation?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Felice. Please take roll.
Simpson,
Yes.
Kevin Albanese,
Aye.
Frank Altamira,
Yes.
Augie Beltran,
Aye.
David Delatorre,
Aye.
Dave Diaz,
Yes.
Susan Granzella,
Aye.
Diana Love,
Aye.
Paula Richardson,
Aye.
Jim Moraine,
Aye.
Nancy Springer is absent. Mary Tiger.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you very much. By the way, during this thing falling apart, you may have heard an expletive. I apologize. Anyway. So with that, we're done with legislation. Thank you.
Thank you, Augie. I feel your pain, brother. I feel your pain. With that, let's. Our next item is update on hiring a consultant. That's update number I, to study which CSLB license classification should install battery energy storage system. The information is contained on page 89 of your board packet. At the December 12, 2019 board meeting, the board authorized staff to move forward with securing a consultant, and that the cost not to exceed $100,000. The contracting mechanism, known as the request for proposal, was posted to the public on March 4th, 2020, with a final proposal submission date of May 6th, 2020. The Department of Consumer Affairs received a total of 5 proposals. On April 30th, prior to the proposal submission deadline, the Department of Finance issued Budget Letter 20-11 that directs all agencies and departments under the direct authority of the governor to take immediate action to reduce current year expenditures. These immediate actions include halting the purchase of any new goods or obtaining new services unless necessary to 1. Address a 2. Provide 24-hour medical care, 3. Avoid a significant revenue loss, or 4. Achieve significant net cost savings. The final step of reviewing and scoring the proposal is on hold until such time an exemption can be obtained. On May 11th, 2020, CSLB submitted a justification seeking consideration for an exemption of Budget Letter 20-11. Tanya, is there any update on this extension request?
Yes, thank you, Chair Simpson. Yesterday, we were informed that the exemption request was approved by agency. So we will move forward with selecting a vendor. There are 2 steps to the selection and evaluation process. We'll begin those. The first will be scoring of the written proposal, and those that score high enough will move to a second phase, which is the oral interview, where the bidders will be asked set questions that are developed. So the panel will get together in the next couple of weeks to begin that process. It's not been scheduled as of yet.
Okay, thank you. Are there any, do we have any board comment? Please raise your hand if so. And I can see, I've got the thing, so I can see if you raised your hand. Marlo, you have yours checked. Was that a previous? Oops, I've got one from Nancy.
Yeah, who are the panelists going to be? Are they staff or who is it? What will it consist of?
The panel members is going to be Dave Fote, myself, and Mike Maliza, who's the Chief of Administration here at CSLB. It is overseen and coordinated through the Department of Consumer Affairs. They'll be present throughout the process, but the board panel members are Dave, myself, and Mike Maliza.
Do we have any other board comment?
I have a question. It's me.
Susan.
Where is the raised your hand icon? Or are we just doing this? Okay. So the question to Tanya would be, given the procedures that we work under DCA for the selection of the vendor, and by the way, that was great news that you got yesterday. Realistically, once the vendor selection starts and a contract is signed, are we talking about work commencing in 2021?
We would look to have work commencing in the next few months.
Really?
Yes, that would be possible because we have the authority to move forward.
Very good. Thank you.
I see I have one other hand raised. Martin?
Yes, we do have one member of the public who would like to comment. Martin Hirschfeld, please go ahead with your comment.
Yes, I'd like to make a note that the technology is continuing to change as well. So.
Okay, thank you. That's the only public comment at this point.
Okay, doesn't require any action from us at this time. So moving on, the next is the executive update. We will begin with agenda item J1, review and possible approval of the December 12th, 2019 board meeting. The meeting minutes begin on page 95 of your board packet. Board members, please raise your hand if you have any amendments to the minutes.
Move to approve the minutes.
I have a motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Do I have any board comment? Seeing none. Do I have any public comment?
No comments on this item.
Elise, can you call the roll, please?
Johnny Simpson,
Aye.
Kevin Albanese,
Aye.
Frank Altamira,
Yes.
Augie Beltran,
Aye.
David Delatorre,
Aye.
Dave Diaz,
Yes.
Susan Granzella. Aye. Sandy Love.
Aye.
Marla Richardson.
Aye.
Jim Ruane.
Aye.
Nancy Springer.
Aye.
Mary Tykert.
Sorry, I was muted. Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Next, let's move on to budget. Agenda item J2, our update and discussion on the budget board begin. Board members, please turn to page 127 of your board packet. I will turn it over to Board Secretary Susan Granzella and Registrar Dave Folk to present this item.
Great. Thank you, everyone. At the end, of course, page 127. And I'm going to start by, we'll have some comments on the information that's on that page. More importantly, though, we have board members who weren't around when the fiscal year closed last year, and actually it gave me the opportunity to ask questions. So the end of our fiscal year is June 30th, and just to remind you that CSLB is a special fund, which means we are an entity that is required to generate revenue and meet expenses. General funds, of course, get their funds from the governor's office. They're not expected to do the revenue and the oversight. So that's where we are within the Department of Consumer Affairs. So as you can see at the beginning, the first paragraph on page 127, our spending authority, which is the governor's budget, $70.1 million, and mandatory non-discretionary funding that we contribute to is 5.5. So it's 75.6. Next paragraph, though, and this is all in preparation for a proposal that Dave and management of CSLB are putting forward. So our expenses this year are projected to be $72 million, and that is $3 million less than we had budgeted originally. And one of the things I wanted to call out is that the reductions were due to review and adjustments that were made. And for example, Tanya, with her contacts within DCA, she and Dave had a new relationship, a better relationship with their IT functions. We sort of worked on this last year, and they were able to move over service and a lot of functionality into DCA at no cost to CSLB. So what used to cost quite a bit of money for us is now being handled, maintained, and guaranteed by DCA. And similar reductions happen. So we're $3 million less. And then the next part, though, is the revenue that we are projected. Stacy did want to make sure that I use the word projected. That as a special entity fund, we have our revenue at 68 million this year. And that is 4 million less than our budget, what our expenses were. So the revenue this year, of course, was highly impacted by what we've all been talking about today, which is basically the last 4 months of the fiscal year. Business was not, I hate to say new normal anymore, but it was very difficult. So it reduced quite a bit. So we didn't have the revenue for new applications, no exams, renewals, training, other services. So the 68 million was our revenue. So what this means at the end of the year, we had talked about in previous board meetings, we have a reserve fund. And well, the question I asked was, where's the reserve fund? Within DCA, they provide oversight. They review our expenses and revenue every month. And at the end of the year, if we are 4 million under, as we are given this set of financial numbers this year, we have in our reserve 10 million. So what they'll do is make an adjustment at the end of June, and we will then have 6 million. And 6 million is not a lot. It's considered about a month of reserve for us. Ideally, we should have 2 to 6 months in reserve. But as Stacy has been pointing out in the prior board meetings, is all our efforts are moving forward to look at increasing fees if necessary, if appropriate. And all of that does take time. We do have, I believe we have, Tanya, are you going to do the review of the CPS consulting?
I certainly can. Did you want me to attend to that?
Well, actually, I thought maybe you had more detail, but I know you have some other things. So we approved a consulting group to take a look. It's called an audit. We're using them as an audit. This consulting group is working on I think it's due in October, but what they will do is tell us where our fee increases are appropriate. They're not necessary, whatever it is on all fronts. So we've made initial changes. We had a fee increase going in February. Legislation will be required for some of the other fee increases. So ideally, right, the last sentence on page 127 is that CPS is expected to recommend increasing fees to a level that will provide a 5 to 6 month reserve over the next 5 years. So that's the good news on that we'll be able to do that. And then the next will be on page 128 and 129. These are the details of the budget, where you can take a look at the expenditures and the revenue. It reflects what I was just talking about. And the good news, and what our fund condition, the reserve fund, the general fund, is on 129. But proactively, Dave and Tanya, and I think Johnny worked with them on this, they are, given the reality of our business without COVID-19, and all of the impact of that business, we don't know how many applicants there will be. We're going to be proactive in getting more. We're not sure what that means to our business. So they sat down, and on page 130 is the expenditure reduction plan. And I wanted to introduce this and have Dave go over this, but as this will be a way of reducing our expenditures for the following year to ensure that we will be okay. That the expenditures will help us handle what we don't know in the way of increased fees or increased number of applicants, what all of the other details would be. So at this point, I'd like the details are there, and I think it's time for Dave to talk about what you propose for us to approve.
Well, thank you, Susan. Yes, on page 130, I'd like to just begin by stating that we did have a meeting, and we looped in Johnny, and we talked about what do we need to achieve next fiscal year? And as Susan mentioned, we had a fund reserve of $10 million to start this fiscal year. It's been depleted by $4 million, so we have $6 million remaining, which is equivalent to 1 month of reserve. And we want to try to keep that 1 month, or at least keep something close to it. And so we don't know how much revenue we'll bring in this fiscal year, as Susan mentioned. We know what we brought in last year. So we based our assumptions on bringing the same amount of money in next fiscal year that we did this fiscal year. And we recognize that we have increased expenses. We have payroll going up. The Attorney General's office has a 30% rate increase that didn't affect us last fiscal year, but it likely will this fiscal year. And we have other expenses such as infrastructure that do go up. So taking all that into consideration, and with the goal of keeping 1 month of reserve, we look at having to cut $7.1 million from budgeted expenses next fiscal year. And that's what you'll see on page 130. I'm going to go through these very quickly. The first one I already talked about, and that is conducting our occupational analysis with video conference rather than having the subject matter experts come to Sacramento. Approximately $250,000 in savings. Delaying filling of positions, and this is a big one. We're not in any way proposing to lay any staff off. What we are proposing is to keep 45 positions vacant. When we prepared this report, we had 35. I believe there's been at least one additional position now that is vacant, but over the next few months with retirements, transfers to other state agencies, we'll hit the 45 if you approve this. Delay replacing enforcement vehicles. We talked to enforcement and they were agreeable to waiting an additional year to replace those 3 vehicles. I think you all know that we're having to go to look at our website and make sure that it's ADA compliant. We're part of a DCA contract to review the documents that have been taken down from the website that are in need of correcting to be ADA compliant. And I'll give thanks to Tanya here for working with the department to reduce our contribution by $200,000. So that's helpful. Reducing our IT expenses. This morning before the meeting, Tanya and Jason Perez, our IT chief, came in with some more ideas. I'm not going to go into what all those are, but the staff are looking at ways that they can reduce IT expenses. So that would be $250,000. And the next one's a big one. It's holding the Attorney General's office at $7 million. This is $1 million less approximately than what's in their budgeted amount. Now this fiscal year, they came in about $6 million, but keep in mind, they didn't impose that 30% rate increase on us. So I did send a message to the Attorney General's office regarding this meeting. I didn't hear back from them, but I explained that based on what I'm going to talk about in a second, we're looking at referring less cases to them. And we're going to present to the board today that we want to hold them at $7 million. And just so it's real clear, what I'm proposing is that if it's April of 2021 and we've expended $7 million, we want to be empowered to tell the AG, you can't bill us anything further. We're going to hold it at $7 million. Well, because of the less workload, the Office of Administrative Hearings, they hear our cases, we'd reduce that by $300,000. Arbitration, the arbitration program, we're going to have to, and I'll just give you an idea. The arbitration program, the cost is for what we call a mandatory arbitration, it's $950. For voluntary, it's $1,450. We're wanting to reduce the arbitration line item amount by $300,000, $350,000 from $900,000. So you would be limiting the number of cases that go to arbitration. But again, I'm going to talk about how this will happen in just a moment. Also, the industry expert consulting fees for enforcement. We have experts that look at job sites, they look at workmanship issues at job sites, and we're going to need to reduce those expenditures. So what I'm going to ask, what Johnny will mention in a moment, is we're asking for two votes here. The first is on what I just talked about. But in order for this to happen, in order to reduce expenses by $7.1 million, we're going to have to limit the workload for enforcement. And one thing we also have to keep in mind when we're looking at this and I did send an email out to all of the board members, is that we've had to identify 18 employees to become contact tracers. And you know what a contact tracer is? Governor Newsom calls them disease detectives. They're already receiving their notices, and we believe that they're going to be reassigned soon. And 15 out of the 18 came from our SWIFT unit, our proactive enforcement unit. So that's going to limit our ability to respond to industry leads. I just mentioned that as foundation for the next part of this, and that is that we want to revisit something the board approved in 2006. In 2006, we were having struggles, more so, not so much the budget, but because we had a hiring freeze and we had backlogs, and we had to do something to make sure that we focus our resources on the most egregious complaints. And this mirrors what the board approved in 2006 with one change. 2006, we were capping it at $5,000. What we're saying here is that if we receive a consumer complaint against a licensed contractor who doesn't have a history of prior violations, and the financial injury is less than $10,000, we're going to do all that we can to settle that complaint. We're going to try to settle that complaint. But if we can't, then we're asking the board to approve us and telling that consumer that you need to pursue small claims court or the license bond, and that we're going to close the case to less than an administrative action. We're not going to send an expert out. We're not going to forward that case to our arbitration program. We're not going to write an administrative citation if it meets that criteria. What's that going to do? It's going to eliminate about 1,600 cases in the investigative centers from having to incur those expenses. Because if you don't do that, you can't achieve what's on page 130. So I don't know if you have any other questions. I'm going to, today you'll be voting on a new board chair, and I'm going to ask that chair to appoint the enforcement committee members. And I would recommend that we have an enforcement committee meeting in the next couple of months to look at how we can best allocate our resources. And just in case anybody has concerns about the prioritization of consumer complaints, we made sure that that was included on page 132. And this recommendation to really triage some of these cases that are going to the field will have no impact on what the board approved, and still focusing on the most egregious, serious cases, the health and safety cases. We're still going to look at the unlicensed practice. We're going to still be able to look at the contractors that are violating health and safety code violations. And so with that, I don't know, Johnny, if I turn it over to you on page 133, where we can read the two staff recommendations.
Right. Yeah, I got it. Thank you, Dave, for the detailed explanation. As you guys are well aware, we're doing everything we can to cut costs. Before I take any comment, I would like to direct the board to consider the two staff recommendations listed on page 133. While these are two separate recommendations, they both are contingent upon each other, with a large number of enforcement positions likely being redirected to COVID-19 contact tracing. Activities and other positions needed to be left vacant. To achieve the $7.1 million in savings, enforcement process changes are necessary. The staff recommendations are as follows. We need to take these as they are dependent upon each other, but we do need to take them as separate motions. So first, we would like to, number one, that the board approve the outlined expenditure cost reductions of $7.1 million. This reduction projects funds solvent at the end of fiscal year 2020-2021 with $4.1 million in reserve. Do we have a motion for that?
Johnny, should we ask for questions or comments though?
I'm going to do that in a second. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, now do we have any board comment? Is there any board comment? I'm looking down the, I'm not.
Diana.
Diana.
Ask a question for clarification from Dave. On page 127, under the CSLB revenue received the $68 million, it says that CSLB receives no general fund money for reimbursement or recoveries for revenue. However, on page 112, under disaster response funding, it says that the board will receive $165,000 in general fund reimbursement. That just seems kind of contradictory to me.
Yeah, it is.
Am I
Nice
not
catch.
reading that correctly?
Yes, absolutely. For the first time that we've ever been aware of, we were able to recover some of our disaster response expenses. And I think that's in large part because the federal government reimburses the states for some of the disasters. So we were making the point during the budget part of it is that it's interesting being special fund and that your budget and your spending authority is set, but you're not provided that amount of revenue you have to generate through licensing fees. So we should correct that to note that we did receive, I think you said $105,000 in reimbursement for our disaster response. So that is an exception to the rule.
Okay, 165,000. Okay.
165, yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Do we have any other board comment?
I do. Yes. And the comment would be what we expect in voting for these changes is that incorporated in future agendas at the board meeting are compliance and how we are doing following this reduction be a direct part of the reporting by the management of CSLB to the board. I would say, I think that's a very important part because we may, vote on it, but we want to know each part and how we are doing at the meetings throughout the year.
Okay, is that Dave? Can we include that with our board meetings to see how we're tracking?
Yeah, it's absolutely imperative that we do that. We will track it, and we're also going to track our revenue, our renewals. Where are they at? Hopefully, our projections will be true, but we will include it in future agendas.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other board comment? Seeing none. Do we have any public comment, Rick?
No public comment on this item.
Okay. Felice, can you call the roll, please?
Johnny Simpson,
Aye.
Kevin Albanese,
Aye.
Frank Altamura,
Yes.
Augie Beltran, was it an aye?
Aye.
It sounds like an aye.
Said aye.
Yes.
David De La Torre,
Aye.
Dave Diaz,
Yes.
Susan Granzella,
Aye.
Dana Love,
Aye.
Marla Richardson,
Aye.
Jimmy Wayne,
Here's Jim dropped off the line here.
absent. Nancy Springer,
Aye.
Mary Teichert.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, with that, let's go to the second motion we need. Number 2, to authorize staff to refer consumers to small claims court and the license bond when the license does not have a history of repeated acts. CSLB mediation attempts have not been successful, and the estimated financial injury is less than $10,000. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a second.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Board member comments. I see. Nancy, is your hand up or was that from before?
No, it's up.
Okay.
So, Dave, you mentioned that this was what you used back in 2006, I think you said. Can you give us some feedback on how it worked back then? Did you have to submit a lot to the small claims court, refer them, or how did the program work when you had it back then?
Well, it's not ideal. It wasn't ideal then. It won't be ideal now because you have consumers that want to be made financial whole. They're very upset with their contractor, and had they wanted to simply go to small claims court, they would have done so. So what it does is it diminishes our complainant satisfaction to a certain extent. One question is, how many consumers will this impact? And we punched some numbers based on what was available to us as far as financial injuries that have been established. And we're estimating that this will relate to about 1,600 complaints a year. So we have a lot of complaints, though, that have relatively small dollar amounts. We try to settle them, but you do have violations, and the consumer is very angry about what happened and would like to see disciplinary action taken. We'll still be able to use a letter of admonishment when appropriate, but it won't afford us the opportunity to issue a citation. And that's the big thing, where we issue a citation, it has an order of correction. If it gets appealed, we have the Attorney General's office represent us. That's what's going to be, that avenue is going to be closed until our revenue picks up. So what we're looking at is for the next 12 months that there's going to be some difficult times here at the Contractors Board, especially in the enforcement program. We're not going to have as many staff as we used to respond to industry and consumer leads for ongoing jobs because of the redirection of the contact tracing staff. And now we're going to have to tell consumers that we can't do anything further to assist you. But it's a trade-off, and I think it's warranted, because if you don't do that, you're not going to be able to timely handle the more egregious complaints that we can today. And that's what this is all geared towards, is focusing on those contractors that are committing elder abuse that need to have an action taken to revoke their license. You know, we want to still be always in position to be addressing the most serious matters. And small claims court is a very effective tool. And one thing we will do is educate the public that if they get the judgment, we can help them to collect that judgment. So a couple things here. They would let us know that they have a judgment that's not been paid. We'll suspend the license until such time as it's complied with. We also will provide them information on how they can put together a bond claim. These contractors have bonds of $15,000, and the consumer can make a claim on that bond, and he or she can recover their injury through that bond amount. And if that does occur, then we require the contractor to reimburse. I apologize for the long answer, but I'm not saying that it's going to be well received by a number of consumers.
So, second question to that. So you're saying that if they're first-time offenders, I think that's how I heard it. What if in the case, I have some concern because with COVID-19 and with many people staying home, some things we've been coming across is a lot of patio covers that were going up. So some illegal activity was starting to happen where they weren't coming in and getting permits. Whether they used a licensed contractor or not, I'm not sure. We would see some debris, but we had backed off on violations a little bit. We did the most egregious. So I do have some concern of what might be out there and what they may continue to do above and beyond the norm. But if we have a first timer, but it's more egregious and it's multiple first times for them, could that be a differing case by case type thing?
Yeah, let me just give you a little more background on what we've been doing recently. Now, if a building official came to us and told us that they have a contractor that's routinely doing work without a building permit, or they've even done, say, a room addition without a permit as a single offense, we would consider that very serious, and we could take action based on that without having repeated acts. So I'm not suggesting we wouldn't still do that. We will do that. Now, as far as working with industry, we're looking for ways to be more efficient, and we have a couple of meetings coming up, and they're both next week. We have one regarding licensing. We have another one we're proposing, it's not totally established yet, for the 16th, to work with industry, to identify, working with industry, who are their most egregious offenders? What information could be provided to us so we could still take an action? There's nothing that's being proposed today that would prohibit us in any way from taking a building department referral and issuing a letter of admonishment where it's disclosed on the website, and we require the contractor to take our training, our permit training. That's still going to be there. That's not being impacted at all. But again, we take it on a case-by-case basis. The type of complaints that are going to be impacted by this are going to be those that generally relate to workmanship issues where it's not all that serious. You have somebody complaining about the painting or the carpet installation, and the injury is estimated to be less than $10,000. Often they'll have a correcting contractor already or an estimate to correct. It's those type of complaints where we don't think it's all that egregious, and it can be handled civilly. in small claims court or by going after the bond. So we're going to use good judgments, and we'll report back to you on what cases we closed too.
Okay, that was going to be my final comment, is that just if we could receive reporting on this as well at the different board meetings. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So I have a question. So what is the plan, or do you have one yet, how this will be communicated so that it isn't the consumer's not hearing about it the first time they call the call center or make a complaint? How are we going to put that on our website? Are we going to say, is it temporary for the next 12 months? I'm just wondering if you don't have that plan together, that you can inform us in your next report, perhaps, on how that will be rolled out, because the disclaimer has to be somewhere.
Oh, absolutely. And now when you go to the CSLB website, there's information on how to file a complaint. There's a whole section on what you can expect when you file the complaint. I'm going to ask our host here to step up for a moment. And Rick, we'll just dust off what we did in 2006. And the way we presented it then is it's an enforcement process change, really. But Rick Lopes and his excellent staff can update that section. Rick, can you comment on that? I think you know what section I'm talking about.
Yeah, we absolutely can. And the information on the website does talk about the process. But what has changed since 2006 is we do offer the ability now to actually file your complaint online. So we'll definitely look at the opening pages of that, let them know, make sure they have real expectations. And it's based in reality, and they don't go down this process if it's not going to work for them, or if it's not the goal they want. So we'll definitely look for any opportunities we can to make sure that they understand as they get into this process just what the realistic expectations, what the outcomes may be, or the different options.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, do we have any other board comment? Any other board comment? Seeing no more hands raised. Rick, do we have any public comment?
Yes, we actually do have a public comment. Blaine Goodman is on the line. So Blaine, go ahead with your comments. Blaine, if you're there, go ahead. Okay, well, he sent a question and I had asked him to stand by, but I can just read the question that he sent me. He's asking, will this policy extend to public work project violations as well?
Yeah, Blaine Goodman is with the Work Preservation Fund. And Blaine, if you're listening to this, mark your calendar for June the 16th. We're going to have a video conference and address this issue. It doesn't necessarily impact the public works, but we want to look for ways to have you help us to take an action when appropriate and lessen our resource requirements. So that'll be discussed on the 16th.
Thank you. Yeah, Blaine says he doesn't have a microphone, but he appreciates that. So yes, we got the word to him.
Okay.
Okay, we have no other public comment?
That's all for public comment.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second, we've had board comment and public comment. So now, Felice, would you call the roll, please?
Johnny Simpson,
Aye.
Kevin Albanese,
Aye.
Frank Altamira,
Yes.
Augie Beltran,
Yes.
David Delatorre,
Aye.
Dave Diaz,
Yes.
Susan Granzella,
Aye.
Diana Love,
Aye.
Paula Richardson, Marla Stoyer,
Yes, I'm serious. I'm sorry. Aye.
Jimmy Wayne,
Aye.
Nancy Springer,
Aye.
Mary Tykert.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Felice. Obviously, for all the board members, obviously this is a little bit different. We are in some difficult times budget-wise, and hopefully we can come out of them quickly as we begin more licensing and more revenue coming in. So hopefully this is a short-term situation. With that, we have any further board comments on that or public comment? Seeing none, move on to J3. Agenda item J3, the election of our 2020-2021 board officers. The nominating committee consisted of Augie Beltran and Nancy Springer, who will provide a recommended slate of officers for chair, vice chair, and secretary for the next fiscal year. I'll turn the floor over to Augie right now, who will present and lead us through the election.
Thanks, Johnny. Nancy Springer and I met to prepare the board slate. Today, the vote for the 3 board officers will be held in the following order: chair, vice chair, and secretary. For each office, I'll nominate the candidate that the committee has recommended. Then I'll ask for a motion from the floor for any other individuals from the board who would like to be nominated. All 4 nominations require a second. Each candidate gets up to 2 minutes to make a statement and describe why they're qualified for the position. Then we'll take a roll call vote for each nominee in alphabetical order. Members can vote yes, no, or abstain. The first nominee to receive a majority of the affirmative votes in favor of that person wins that officer position. So now I'm going to proceed with the nomination for chair from our committee is David Delatorre. Are there any other nominations from the floor? Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Nominations are closed. David, would you like to say something?
Yes, I just want to thank the board for the recommendation and look forward to working with you guys. So thanks.
Rick, does the public have any comments on this?
No, there are no comments at this time.
Does the board have anything they'd like to say on this? Felice, please take roll call.
Kevin Albanese,
Yes.
Rick Altamura,
Yes.
Augie Beltran,
Yes.
David Delatorre,
Aye.
Dave Diaz,
Yes.
Susan Granzella,
Aye.
Diana Love,
Aye.
Paula Richardson,
Aye.
Jim Wayne,
Aye.
Johnny Simpson,
Aye.
Nancy Springer,
Aye.
Mary Tykert.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Congratulations, Chairman-elect.
Thank you.
Next is our nomination for vice chair. Our committee recommends the nomination of Susan Granzella. Are there any other nominations from the floor? Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Nominations are closed. Susan, would you like to say something?
Never without a comment. I always like to say, no, thank you very much. It's been a long time, and I'd like to thank my mom and dad. And let's see, now Dave isn't able to fulfill his duties all year, all of that, just to have fun at the end, because it's been a long time sitting in front of this computer. But I wanted to say thank you very much. Look forward to serving with Dave. And fortunately, I haven't insulted him very much. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you for those comments. Felice, please call roll.
Kevin Albanese,
Yes.
Frank Altamura,
Yes.
Augie Beltran,
Yes.
David Delatorre,
Aye.
Dave Diaz,
Yes.
Susan Granzella,
Am I supposed to abstain?
No.
I abstain. Oh, no. Yes.
Diana Love,
Aye.
Marla Richardson, Marlo, absent. Jim
I'm
Wayne,
here. It's doing some weird stuff. Aye.
Aye. Jim Wayne,
Aye.
Nancy Springer,
Yes.
Mary Tykert.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Congratulations, Vice Chair.
You forgot Johnny Simpson. Aye.
We just kind of gathered you were going to be an aye there, Simpson. All righty. Last is the nomination for board secretary. We sent out a couple of emails, and the response, there was no real response other than some people felt that they didn't want to run for the position yet. So I asked Nancy Springer to step up to the position because she always steps up to everything she does. And I'm going to throw in a little commercial. I think she's a winner. So you're awesome. So I guess you guys know where we're going with this is we nominate Nancy Springer to be the board chair, or actually I do. Are there any other nominations from the floor? Are there any other nominations? Oh, I see a thumbs up. Okay.
Yeah, whoa. You got me? Augie?
What's that? Who's talking?
It's Kevin Albanese.
What's up, Kev?
Hey, nothing. I'm not sure when those emails went out, and I don't know if you had to twist Nancy's arm into doing that, but I'd love to nominate Mary Tykert for secretary. I got all the respect in the world for Nancy. I think she'd do a fantastic job as well. I've known Mary for probably about 10 years or is it appropriate to editorialize here or just make the nomination?
Just make the nomination.
I nominate Mary Tykert.
Mary, do you accept?
I do, and I am also new to the board and respect whatever Nancy's thoughts were on that. So I am certainly amenable to running and appreciate the honor, Kevin. And thank you for thinking of that. I'm good both ways. Thank you.
Okay,
and
so this
more
is
interested in progressing, but it doesn't have to be today. So let's see how this goes. Thanks.
Okay. Newly elected chair. I'm just taking a look at the. Okay, so we're going to go in alphabetical order. S comes before T. So first we're going to vote on Nancy Springer, and then we'll vote on Mary Tykert. Feliz, go ahead and take the roll for Nancy.
Point of order. Do we want to give him an opportunity to say?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Sorry. Thank you. Okay, Nancy, you have 2 minutes to say what you'd like.
Sure, and I'm happy to actually, I can step back. So if Mary, it'll give Mary an opportunity to step up in there and take that over, that's fine. I'm good with that. I just didn't want to see it where nobody was stepping up. I've been around for 6 years, so I still got a few more. So Mary can go ahead and I'll withdraw from it. It'll make it easy.
Okay. So you withdraw your nomination?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
And
All right.
you need to correct it because you initially said chair, and I think it's secretary.
That's board secretary. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, Mary, you have 2 minutes to say anything you'd like.
Terrific, thank you. Well, I'm new to this board. It's certainly an honor to be a part of it. We've been regulated by this board for quite some time. I will say how much I appreciate industry involvement, both in this board and frankly, in making sure that we have an excellent, outstanding contractor base. So the other boards that I'm involved in, including the Beavers, CBIA, other things related to our industry, I think folks coming together and overseeing all of our industry together and frankly, stepping up and doing some responsible work on behalf of other members of it is a big deal. So I'm happy to serve. I appreciate the opportunity. I am new to this board, so I have plenty to learn. But Nancy, that was very kind of you, and I'd be honored.
All right. Feliz, roll call, please.
Kevin Albanese,
Yes.
Frank Altamira,
Yes.
Augie Beltran,
Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
David Delatorre,
Yes.
Dave Diaz,
Yes.
Susan Granzella,
Yes.
Diana Love,
Aye.
Mala Richardson,
Aye.
Emma Wayne,
Working yet?
Aye.
Nancy Springer,
Yes.
Mary Tykert.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Congratulations, Board Secretary-elect. With that, congratulations to all of our new officers. Thank you to all of our old officers for their works. David Diaz, enjoy your life in retirement, and I'm done.
Thank you, Augie and Nancy, for your hard work as our nominating committee. I too would like to congratulate all the new officers coming in. I know you will enjoy it as much as I have, and tell you what, it is a learning experience. I would like to thank Dave Fote and Tanya Corcoran for all the stuff that they supported me with, and all your staff, and what a great experience it's been for me even through this tough time. So thank you very much for all of that. And with that, we only have one thing left in our agenda today. That completes our business. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. Do we have any board discussion? Any board comment? Any comment from the public?
No public comment.
All right. Lise, can you take the roll, please?
Johnny Simpson,
Aye.
Kevin Albanese,
Aye.
Frank Altamura,
Yes.
Augie Beltran,
Yes.
David Delatorre,
Yes.
Dave Diaz,
Yes.
Susan Granzella,
Yes.
Diana Love,
Yes.
Paula Richardson,
Yes.
Jim Ruane,
Aye.
Nancy Springer,
Yes.
Mary Tykert.
Yes.
We're adjourned.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good day and a nice weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you.
And goodbye.
Be safe.
Susan. She's off already.